Chapter 566. Senior, what did you think of? Suli said quietly, interrupting the old man's thoughts. The old man in black frowned and snorted coldly, fighting for fate with the Tianjiao list. According to what you said, it should be the Wangtian tablet of the Buddha Yuan ancient temple, the sacred place of human clans Buddhism. It is said that it contains all kinds of methods, including many secret skills. Suli pretended to be surprised. The Wangtian tablet? Yes. The old man in black seemed to be lost in memory, but at that time, the human clan who could leave their names on the Wangtian tablet didn't get fate, but Buddha's relics, which could help people improve their cultivation after refining. Changing the world. Letting the Wangtian tablet carry the fate of a world is absolutely against the law of nature. What happened during the years when I was asleep? The old man in black faintly smelled a conspiracy, but helplessness flashed in his eyes when his eyes fell on the black lotus under the guanyin. Senior, haven't you ever thought of leaving here to find out the truth? Su Li's words sounded timely, almost touching the old man's heart. If it was in the past, I might be able to do my part for this world, but now, I can't. Why? Su Li put the flagon aside and looked at the guanyin statue meaningfully. Is it because this thing suppressed you, Senior? You can tell me the reason. Maybe I can help you. Why are you so obsessed with my freedom? The old man in black was surprised. He couldn't help but look at Su Li again vaguely, but the conclusion he got was the same as before. This girl was an ordinary young female practitioner of human clan. She was even too young. Her bone age was less than 50 years, and she was in Yuanying realm. Even in his time, such a little girl was a genius. But when it came to helping, it was a fantasy. Su Li didn't answer. She just stared at the old man in black, and there was only clarity and sincerity in her eyes. The old man in black seemed to think of something. His expression suddenly softened, and the killing intent in his heart dissipated. Well, I don't mind telling you. He smiled, and the wrinkles on his face were like tree bark. Do you know the existence of the ghost clan? I have seen it in the classics of the sect. Su Li nodded seriously. That's an extinct race. I heard that it was extremely powerful. Black Lotus, who was in the ring, rolled his eyes. His cunning little master was talking nonsense again to deceive people. No, to deceive ghosts. Black Coat, Ghost Clan, could it be? Black Lotus pinched his chin thoughtfully, but he didn't remind Su Li, this old man is a member of the ghost race. The black-robed old man went straight to the point and said calmly, back then, I made a grave mistake and was punished to swear an oath to guard the Holy Lotus for all eternity until a true successor of the Holy Lotus appeared in my clan. At this point, although the black-clothed old man's mood was still calm, his tone unconsciously carried a trace of bitterness. However, even the patriarch would not have thought that with the passage of time. Even the ghost clan no longer exists, who would be able to break the oath? Saint Lotus? Su Li's sight fell on the statue of Guanyin and she said, Is this the Black Lotus? Why don't you let me try? Hee. The black-robed old man laughed. Even if this old man agrees to let you try this sacred relic of my ghost race, a mere human like you will not be able to withstand it. I repeatedly woke up and fell asleep, but in the end, I couldn't wait for that clansman. My thoughts have already faded, so there's no need to force it. Su Li curled her lips. Elder, don't underestimate me just because I'm young. I'm a heaven's chosen one of the human race. Maybe I'm the one you're waiting for. Ha ha ha. The black-robed old man laughed out loud. Little human girl, you are indeed too young. Do you really think that you can do whatever you want just because you have a bit of talent? Seeing that Su Li was still not convinced, the elder in black shook his head and slowly stepped aside. Well, it is fate that we meet. I'll wake you up and make you understand that there's always someone better out there. Humph, old senior, I'll prove it to you. Su Li immediately stood up and jumped to the front of the Guanyin statue. She asked confidently, Elder, what should I do? In the eyes of the black-clothed old man, her current appearance made it seem as if she didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Holding the mentality of watching a joke, he replied, Place your hand on the lotus platform and calmly sense it. Finally, it came to this step. Su Li looked slightly serious. She stretched out her hand and gently covered the black lotus throne. One breath, two breaths. The Guanyin statue did not respond. Although the black-robed old man did not hold any hope, he couldn't help but sigh slightly when he saw this scene. With a comforting tone, he said gently, "This is the 12th grade Holy Lotus. The Holy Lotus has a spirit. Even the most talented patriarch of the Ghost Clan could not subdue it. You are not even a member of the Ghost Clan. How could you, Before the black-robed old man finished his words, his old eyes suddenly widened. He was completely shocked by the scene in front of him. The black lotus throne shook faintly and immediately came to life as if it had found a home. It quickly became smaller and integrated into Su Li's pubic region. The obviously noble Numa revealed urgency and uneasiness, as if Su Li was afraid of abandoning it. It was as humble as dust. Boom. Without the black lotus throne, the Guanyin statue could not support it and collapsed, blasting a huge pit on the decayed floor. The black-robed old man seemed not to hear it. He stared blankly at Su Li, who had sat cross-legged on the ground. His lips trembled and his face was full of horror. The Holy Lotus chose the human clan? Su Li's divine awareness sank into her pubic region and immediately saw the pocket-sized black lotus of the 12th grade that was circling around her black lotus throne of the 18th grade. She impatiently wanted to integrate into it, but couldn't. Su Li looked at the 12th grade black lotus unhurriedly. At the moment when she touched it, she sensed that there was a Ghost Clan's forbidden oath in her awareness sea. The black-robed old man could not hurt her, but also became her slave. Although the restriction is a little big, it is definitely a good card in this ghost town. Thinking of this, Su Li's eyes left the forbidden oath and returned to her pubic region. Her eyes were cold. Black Lotus, do you still want to continue pretending to be dead? I am afraid that the old guy will find out and affect your plan. Black Lotus's embarrassed voice came into her mind. Congratulations, Master. You got the most precious treasure of the Ghost Clan. The 12th grade Black Lotus transforming into sword. Transforming into sword. Su Li thought and looked at the pocket-sized lotus throne flying in her pubic region. It turns out that this is the transforming into sword. She had a good memory. Naturally, she remembered that as early as when she broke through Zhuji realm, Black Lotus told her that the transforming into sword could transform into 18 Black Lotus swords. If she could control them, her power would be infinite. There are some loopholes in what I said before. Black Lotus's tone was a little cautious. Throughout the history of this circle, there has never been an 18th grade transforming into sword. Even the 12th grade transforming into sword is a legend. I thought it disappeared in time. I didn't expect that you were so lucky to meet it. Su Li looked as usual, without any surprise of getting the treasure. She just stared at the black lotus shadow. What else are you hiding from me? Tell me all of them. Black Lotus suddenly sweated on his forehead. He rubbed his hands awkwardly and said honestly, "This old man in black is similar to the dragon shadow in the ancestral land of the ghost region. They are also old monsters in the years of all spirits calendar. But I have some impression of him. His reputation in the history books of the Ghost Clan is quite big. If I remember correctly, he should be the only genius of the branch of the prehistoric Ghost Clan, named Yi Che. There are not many of them, but they are famous for making Yi Ji. In the years of the All Spirits calendar, Yi Ji was a famous delicacy of the Ghost Clan." Yi Ji? Delicacy? Su Li thought of the ugly blue monster she saw that year, and couldn't help but feel strange. Did the taste of the prehistoric Ghost Clan all have such a strange taste? Ahem, don't think too much. At that time, Yi Ji was as cute as a domestic pig in the secular world. Later, I don't know what happened, and Yi Ji became like that. Anyway, I haven't eaten it. It's awful. You haven't eaten it, but you know it's awful? Su Li raised her eyebrows and didn't expose him. At this moment, she finally confirmed the long-time guess in her heart. Black Lotus was not a very smart spirit, and she didn't know how he survived to the present. How should I integrate the transforming sword skill? Su Li asked, suppressing the thought in her heart. Open up your mind and allow it to merge with your foundation. However, nurturing these 12 swords is not something that can be done in a short period of time. You need an ocean's worth of ghostly chi to support it. Speaking of business, Black Lotus was reliable. After explaining in detail, Suli let go of the control of her pubic region. The pocket-sized lotus throne quickly integrated into the base like a swallow returning to its nest, without any hindrance, as if the two were originally one. When the transforming sword skill was completely integrated into the base, Suli immediately felt that there were 12 more subtle pneumas in the base, with a sense of coldness and sharpness. And the extra 6th-grade pneumas were still in a state of silence. If I find another 6th-grade transforming sword skill, can I integrate it into it? This thought flashed in Suli's mind, and then she put it away. The Ghost Clan had long been extinct, and there was little news about it in Qingshui Circle. It was impossible to find the transforming sword skill in a short time, so she had to pay attention to it later. The integration of the transforming sword skill seemed to be fast, but in fact, it took Suli a day and a half. It's time to go back to Tianyaran to meet. Suli opened her eyes, and a very faint black light flashed in her eyes. The black-robed elder, who was meditating aside, sensed the movement and immediately got up to bow. "Master, I'm Yi Che." Suli accepted the bow calmly and immediately said, "Senior Yi, I accept this bow, and you don't have to bow to me anymore. You don't have to worry that I will ask you to do something with a forbidden oath." Hearing this, the biggest stone in Yi Che's heart was suddenly dropped, but he looked sad and lonely. He was a genius in the past, but he never thought that he would fall into such a situation and become a slave of a little girl of the human clan. Suli was very sensitive, and she saw through Yi Che's mentality. She immediately chuckled. "Senior Yi, don't worry about it. Those who were in the same generation as you have already become the ashes of time. You'd better get over it. Relatively speaking, you do get freedom, but I still need to remind you. I don't know how many years have passed since the All-Spirits calendar, but the time span is at least more than 40,000 years. You have lived for too long. It's okay if you are in the Shangxian Mountain, but if you leave, the natural law will inevitably send nature's punishment." Suli's words and manners were extremely rigorous, and she seemed to be a different person from before. Hearing this, Yi Che's face changed slightly, and he finally realized that Chapter 567. Was I fooled? I was fooled by this little girl who was less than 50 years old. Her behavior just now was definitely to lower my vigilance, so that she could easily get the Holy Lotus. He was fooled and didn't even know it. The human clan took the Holy Lotus of the Ghost Clan. I'm sorry for the ancestors of the Ghost Clan. Yi Che covered his chest and felt suffocated. But because of the oath, he didn't dare to say anything disrespectful. He didn't even dare to ask Suli to solve his doubts. In the world, there was no reason for a master to solve the doubts of a servant, even if he was suffocated by so many doubts. Suli completely ignored the struggle on his old face and said with a smile, "It's almost time for the Tianjiao battle. Do you want to stay here or go with me to have a look?" Yi Che glanced at Suli bitterly and then sighed. "Of course I will go with you, master. After staying in this shabby cottage for tens of thousands of years, how could he not get tired of it?" Even if he had countless complicated thoughts about Suli, he instantly suppressed all the thoughts and nodded because of the temptation of going out to have a look. Suli answered softly and turned to walk out of the dilapidated courtyard. Every time she took a step, the weeds that were as high as a person were annihilated by an inch, revealing piles of white bones that were as high as half of her knees. Some of the bones even glowed with colorful jade luster. Suli raised her eyebrows and glanced at the white bones. Her expression didn't change anymore, and she walked out slowly. "Senior Yi, why don't you follow me?" Yi Che, who had been observing Suli in the cottage, nodded when he saw this. He flicked his sleeves, and all the bones and the cottage turned into flying ashes. Since he and the Holy Lotus had left, there was no need for the cottage to exist. The Ghost Clan was destroyed, so he couldn't cling to the rotten past anymore. He wanted to see if this little master was worth his life. Today was the day of the Tianjiao battle. The plaza in the center of the city was bustling with noise and excitement. The area around the Heavenly Star Monument was completely different from the previous 2 days. There were rows of tall stone puppets made of unknown materials surrounding the Heavenly Star Monument, sealing off the space within 100 meters around it. Moreover, there was a faint feeling of spatial distortion. The Heavenly Star Valley's small world dimension technique allows one to enclose a piece of land and form a world of their own. There's also the Heavenly Star Steel. When Suli and Yiche arrived and saw the scene, Yiche's calm face suddenly showed surprise. The Tianqing Valley has actually survived until now? Suli's eyes flickered thoughtfully. The Heavenly Star Valley that Yiche spoke of should be the Horizon Guest. Black Lotus had also said that it had an extremely long history. Looking at Yiche's reaction, its origins were probably even more terrifying than he had imagined. Master, even during this old servant's era, the Heavenly Star Valley was an ancient faction that could be traced back to countless years ago. I did not expect that the Heavenly Star Valley would still exist even after my ghost race perished. Yiche had no intention of hiding anything. He grew slightly excited. This force definitely knows the reason behind the destruction of the ghost race. Suli knew what he was thinking. She pondered for a moment and said, "You can investigate it. Also, check the list of glory sects that participated in the bloody calamity of the Holy Spirit and see if there's any difference from the one I got." Master, what is the bloody calamity of the Holy Spirit? Seeing that Suli did not stop him, Yiche was relieved and then asked in a low voice embarrassedly. He had just walked out of the thatched cottage, so he naturally did not know the major events that happened in his sleep. Just ask anyone. Everyone knows about it, Suli said casually. She turned her eyes and saw Hua Shichen, who was waiting anxiously in front of the puppet. Hua Shichen was anxiously waiting in front of the puppet. The others were nowhere to be seen. Her eyes flashed. "I'll go in first. You can move freely outside. Remember my instructions." "I understand. Master, be careful in everything. The sky-gazing tablet is a sacred object of Buddhism. It does not cause killing, but I don't know about this sky-gazing tablet." When Yiche spoke up to hear, he added, "If Master's strength is sufficient, you can choose the left path. I heard that among the human geniuses that went to the heaven-gazing monument all those years ago, there was a saying, 'The left path is the greatest fortuitous encounter.'" Suli nodded in surprise. "You know a lot. You are much more reliable than that old thing." "Old thing?" Yiche looked blank. The old thing in the black lotus ring instantly darkened his face. "Okay, I'm leaving." Suli waved her hand and squeezed into the crowd. Wherever she went, all the practitioners who were watching the fun were pushed away unconsciously. It seems that my little master's cultivation is much higher than what I saw. Yiche took a deep look at Suli's back and disappeared in the crowd. Elder Hua Shichen was still anxious. Suddenly, he heard a familiar tone behind him. He immediately turned his head and said with surprise and joy, You are finally here. Junior Lord and others have already entered. This is the news I have collected in the past 2 days. The opening time of the entrance of the Tianjiao list is not fixed, and it only lasts for 2 hours. You should also go in and wait." Suli took the jade slip handed over by him, nodded, and walked to the stone puppet. The stone puppet's eyes suddenly lit up with red light. After glancing at Suli for a moment, it silently stepped aside. Suli walked in without looking back, but she was thinking. This stone puppet had the function of identifying bone age. It seemed good to put one in an ice sect. She didn't know whether Tynyak Attic would sell it or not. Seeing Suli's figure disappear in the entrance, Hua Shichen breathed a sigh of relief and immediately showed an excited smile on his face. With Lord Qingshui's help, Jiguang sect would definitely be promoted to a holy sect. The sense of distortion lasted for a few seconds and then dissipated. What Suli saw was a square that was countless times larger than before. Even though nearly 80% of the talents of Qingshui's circle came at this moment, they only occupied 1/5 of the square, and they were sparsely distributed. The square is so large, and it is by no means a waste. The cultivation in the All Spirits calendar year was much more prosperous than it is now. This thought flashed in Suli's mind. She turned and walked in the direction of the people of Jiguang sect, but found that the people of Anai sect and Jiguang sect stood together, and the opposite were many disciples of Splendor Hall. "Which sect do you belong to? How dare you meddle in the business of Splendor Hall? Are you tired of living?" In the team of Splendor Hall, someone scolded with a cold face. "Get out of here." Yin Zai grinned, revealing his white teeth. "You repulsive people want to know the name of my sect? If it weren't for the prohibition of fighting in this space, believe it or not, I could press all of you to the ground by myself." You what?" Yin Zai picked his ears and looked like a rascal at first glance. "I know that you are a group of useless people who have never seen the world. You don't even know how to quarrel. It seems that you are not good at fighting." The eyes of the people of Splendor Hall were red, and their chests rose and fell violently. Swish, swish, swish. A few grumpy disciples of Splendor Hall finally couldn't help it. They made a gesture, and several flying swords were unsheathed. Then they saw the sky. A huge suction came from the ground. The disciples who fought screamed, and their hands burst into blood mist. They were sucked into the whirlpool and disappeared. There was silence in the square. The disciples of Splendor Hall were all stiff when they saw several flying swords falling on the ground. "A group of idiots." Yin Zai laughed, and his tone was full of sarcasm. "I warned you not to fight, but you still dared to fight. Are you brainless? Fortunately, I showed up and sent them out. Otherwise, they wouldn't even know how they died. Shouldn't you thank me? Let's go." The young leader's face was as gloomy as water, and blue veins appeared on his forehead. Hearing this, the flying sword in his hand was almost crushed. He turned around and left. He was afraid that if he continued to listen, he would not be able to help but fight. This person's words were too unpleasant. "Ha ha ha ha. Why are you leaving? Don't go. I was worried that there was no one to talk to." Yin Zai waved his hand hard, looking mean. The disciples of Jiguang's sect were stunned. They were few in number, and they thought they would be humiliated by the people of Splendor Hall. They didn't expect that when this ordinary-looking strange young man showed up, all the people of Splendor Hall couldn't resist. This mouth was too powerful. "Nice." Yin Zai laughed out loud when he saw the people from the Splendor Hall walking even faster. They were much easier to scold than the people from the Void Sword sect. His mouth could only be ranked second in the Void Sword sect. There was one person he could not scold no matter what. Ling Qinglan's eyes twitched, and he turned his head away. The disciples of Void Sword sect were really good at talking. He thought that Yin Zai was reticent and not good at it, but he didn't expect that it was not that he was not good at it, but that no one scolded him. Thinking about it, he had no enemies in an ice sect. Who could he scold? This time, he met Splendor Hall, so he liberated his nature. "Thank you for helping me out, elder brothers." Xianan was shocked by Yin Zai's laughter. He quickly cupped his hands and stepped forward to get close to Yin Zai. He looked at Yin Zai with admiration. "Elder brother, you are so good at talking. Can you teach me?" Yin Zai was about to answer, but he suddenly saw Su Li behind Xianan, looking at him with a faint smile. "Senior Qing Shui." Yin Zai suddenly broke into a cold sweat and quickly bowed his head to salute. He didn't forget Su Li's order and changed master to Senior Qing Shui. "Elder sister?" Xianan immediately turned around and saw the familiar thin figure. He immediately ran over with joy and hugged Su Li's waist. "How old are you? You are still like a child." Su Li helplessly pushed Xianan away. Seeing Zhang Run and others coming over, she nodded gently. "Elder sister, are these people yours?" Xianan couldn't help but transmit the sound in private. Among all the people, only he knew that the elder sister in front of him was not called Qing Shui, but Su Jiuzhou. Su Li smiled slightly. "Does it matter whether they are mine or not? Just like my name, you only need to know that everything I do is beneficial to all of you." Xianan thought for a moment and showed a big smile. "Elder sister, you are right. Master, we have warned Tainyake Attic, and Xiaowei doesn't dare to act rashly for the time being." Yin Zai transmitted the sound in secret, and Su Li nodded gently. "I didn't expect that you have such a glib tongue." Yin Zai immediately smiled. In front of Su Li, he didn't dare to flirt. Chapter 568. The entrance of the prodigy battle was still turning slowly, but there was no response. "Qing Shui, senior sister, we have inquired about it these days." Zhang Run remembered Su Li's previous instructions and changed the way he addressed Su Li. He said with respect, "The rules of every Tianjiao battle are almost the same. The first test is to test the nature of the soul to prevent alien races from sneaking in. Sister, I've also collected a lot of information." Xianan glanced at Zhang Run and smiled. His tone implied a sense of comparison. "I heard that in ancient times, the alien races were rampant, and the human clan was far less powerful than it is now. They could only survive in the gap between the alien races. In order to cultivate the talents of the human clan, we must first eliminate the spies of the alien races. Otherwise, it is very likely that we will work hard for others." Su Li nodded slightly, but a strange light flashed in her eyes. The situation within her body was very complicated. Even she wasn't sure if she could still be considered a human. She also didn't know if she could pass the first trial. However, since he had already entered, there was no reason for him to turn back. Zhang Run looked strangely at Xian, who was contending for favor. He coughed lightly and continued, "The second test is cultivation. The bone age of the Tianjiao list is limited to 2,000 years old. The practitioners who come in, whether they are 100 years old, 1,000 years old, or 1,999 years old, are treated equally. The higher their cultivation, the higher their initial ranking." At this point, Zhang Run paused and said worriedly, "Senior sister, the ages of the 12 of us. I'm afraid we're a little too young. The oldest among us is only 1,200 years old. Compared to those holy sect disciples who are stuck at 2,000 years old, the gap is too big." Su Li didn't answer when she heard the words. She glanced at the people of Jiguang's sect, who all lowered their heads in shame. "What? We haven't even started, and you've already lost all confidence?" Su Li frowned slightly and scolded him coldly. Xianan sighed and shook his head. "Sister, don't blame them. You don't know that the disciples of holy sects who come to participate in the Tianjiao battle this time are different from the past." Su Li raised her eyebrows and didn't speak. Then Xianan continued, "In the past, the disciples of the holy sects who reached the age limit of 2,000 years reached the early stage of Huashan realm, which was already very exaggerated. But this time, let alone early soul formation cultivators, even mid-soul formation cultivators and late soul formation cultivators are a dime a dozen. I even heard that the 4 people from the Pinnacle Holy Sect have broken through the soul formation stage and reached the tribulation passing stage. In an ordinary sage sect, he would already be an elder. Could it be that the rumors I heard are true?" Ing Qiao's small mouth slightly opened as she exclaimed in a low voice, "A few days ago, when I was at the tea house with my senior brothers, I heard someone say that the people who participated in the bloody catastrophe of the divine spirit all had some kind of restriction within their bodies, and their cultivation speed increased by leaps and bounds. They could be said to be monstrous. A tribulation stage cultivator who is less than 2,000 years old is too exaggerated." As soon as the words came out, Yin Zai and others immediately exchanged glances without a trace. Their cultivation was also very fast. It was really possible that it was the influence of reincarnation mirror, as Ing Qiao had heard in the rumors. Su Li narrowed her eyes and thought for a moment, but she didn't mention the bloody accident of the Holy Spirit. She just said, "Since we are here, let's take things as they come. Just do your best. Save your own life first. Do you understand? Especially you." Xianan, seeing Su Li's sight, Xianan shrank his neck and said, "Sister, don't worry. I won't take my life as a joke. I can abstain before entering each level. I will abstain after the second level. I just come in to see what my cultivation can rank. There are many people like me who come in to watch the fun." Su Li nodded slightly and turned to look at Zhang Run. "Go on?" "Okay." Zhang Run's tone was calm and clear. He quickly shared what he had inquired with everyone. Not long after he finished speaking, the whirlpool behind the heavenly star tablet suddenly vibrated, and then it rotated rapidly. The secret realm of Tianjiao battle is opened. Almost in an instant, everyone stopped what they were doing and rushed into the whirlpool at once. No one knew when the whirlpool would close. If they missed the Tianjiao battle because of hesitation, they would regret it for a lifetime. "Let's go." What Zhang Run said just now can only be used as a reference. Be careful. Let's go. Everyone rushed out without saying a word. tens of thousands of genius practitioners of Qingshui's circle turned into a turbulent stream of people, rushing to be the first. The scene was spectacular and cruel. Even some people with low cultivation were unstable and fell to the ground. In the blink of an eye, they were trampled into blood mist by countless people behind them. Su Li's expression didn't change, but a hint of awe flashed in her eyes. She immediately ordered, Zion Ling Qinglan, you two go in the front and leave a way for Xianan and others. Yanzai knew the details of Xianan and others, so he took the lead without saying a word. A strange feeling flashed in Jiang Run's heart. Even if this group of people were old acquaintances of Lord Qingshui, they were too obedient. But at this moment, he had no time to think about it, and rushed into the whirlpool. After the darkness, all the hustle and bustle turned into extreme silence. Su Li opened her eyes and found that she was standing alone in front of a huge ancient tablet. She was surrounded by chaos, and she couldn't see the real situation. It seems that everyone is separated and tested separately. Su Li turned her eyes and cast them on the stone tablet. According to Black Lotus's knowledge, there was a complete scripture on the stone tablet. However, although the content of the scripture was on the ancient tablet in front of her, the name of the scripture and the opening general outline were erased, leaving a vague trace. Read this scripture and recite it. If you don't have the hindrance of the inner demons, you are a member of the human clan. Otherwise, you will be destroyed by the power, and your soul will be scattered. Seeing the last paragraph of the scripture, Su Li narrowed her eyes and immediately pressed her palm on the ancient tablet without hesitation. In just a moment, the golden light of the ancient tablet surged, and countless golden words jumped out of the ancient tablet and stood in the nothingness. Su Li's eyes glowed with golden light, and her red lips opened slightly. The scripture came out of her mouth unhurriedly, and every word was a gem. Every time she said a paragraph, there would be a line of golden scripture in the nothingness automatically into her body, washing from beginning to end, as if it was looking for something. At this moment, Su Li's mind instantly tightened, although she still regarded herself as a member of the human clan. After all, she had the characteristics of the ghost clan. Would this scripture let her go? Seeing that she was about to touch the black lotus throne in her pubic region, Su Li was about to withdraw her palm. But at this moment, the two divine thunders, which had been calm, suddenly boiled, directly pulled the golden words over, and swallowed them. Buzz! The nothingness trembled, and the originally calm ancient tablet shook violently. Then, more scripture spewed out. At the same time, the original words on the ancient tablet disappeared, and were replaced by another line of words. At the beginning of peace, all evils retreat. It is a blessing for our human clan. Old Monk's relic is willing to be the benefactor. At the end of the writing, Su Li had no time to read it carefully. Although the surging energy in the scripture was gentle, it was unreasonably huge. She had to concentrate on collecting it. After a long time, the golden light on the stone tablet dimmed, and the energy subsided. Su Li opened her eyes, and a bright Buddha's light flashed in her eyes. The energy was very gentle. Although she couldn't refine it immediately, it was easy to refine it. Buddha's relic, I only mentioned it from Black Lotus. It was the supreme cultivation secret treasure of the human clan in ancient times. I didn't expect it to help me. Su Li sighed in her heart. She saw that the line of words on the stone tablet had disappeared, and the original scripture was restored. Under the scripture, there was a blank line. Cultivation, Yuanying Realm, ranking 2476. Under this line of information, there was a blank groove. Hearing what Jiang Run said, Su Li naturally knew what to do. She took out a white and flawless blank jade slip. This jade slip was specially made by Tainyak Attic. It was distributed to all young geniuses who participated in the Tianjiao battle. By this, they could show their names on the Tianjiao list and divide their sections. It was also the key for all emerging talents to make a name for themselves. Su Li gently put the jade slip into the groove and slightly raised her lips. A faint voice sounded, like a stone thrown on the calm lake, and ripples appeared. I am Su Jiuzhou of an Eye sect. Just when Su Li engraved her identity, in one of the countless stone tablet spaces, Ling Li looked at the scripture stone tablet in front of him with indifferent eyes. Ling Li, don't forget your innate mission. You are the keeper of the monument. You are destined to devote everything to the Ling family in your life. Even your life, you will not hesitate. And I, Ling Xian, am the only daughter of my father, the young lord of Shengtian Shrine, and the future fate ancestor. I am the mandate of heaven. You must listen to me. Otherwise, no one can protect my illegitimate nephew. Even if he hides in the Yinyang region, for my master, it is just a matter of a word to destroy a region. Do you know? Before the departure, the cold words of the veiled woman in Shengtian Palace still sounded in his ears. Ling Li took a deep breath, and the killing intent in his eyes faded. He took out a jade slip and put it into the groove. It seemed that he hadn't spoken for a long time, and his slightly hoarse voice echoed in the nothingness. Ling Li of the Fate Palace. As soon as he finished speaking, the jade slip in the groove flashed with white light and instantly disappeared into the stone tablet. At the same time, Ling Xian, who was far away in the Fate Palace, saw a burst of dazzling light from the black jade slip hanging in the center of the hall. Her eyes suddenly brightened, and her perfect and delicate face showed a smile that made the world pale. But somehow, although the smile was perfect, it always made people feel a little uncomfortable. She turned around, bowed to the shadow above the hall, and smiled sweetly. Master, it's done. I know that my worthless brother is cold-blooded and ruthless on the surface, but in fact, he cares about the bastard very much. Since then, my Fate Palace has him to participate in the battle, which is enough to be a holy sect. But Master, I don't understand. My Fate Palace has always been low-key. Is it too reckless? The figure hidden in the shadow chuckled. After a moment of silence, he didn't answer but asked, if you do so, the fate of Shengtian Shrine will inevitably fall. Aren't you afraid that your father will be furious and blame you? Master, you must be joking. Ling Xian's beautiful eyes were full of ambition. You only have me, and the Fate Palace must be controlled by me in the future. Isn't it the same for Shengtian Shrine? In my opinion, the Fate Palace and Shengtian Shrine are all my forces, and the fate is gathered in me. What's the difference? If these words were in ordinary sects, it must be rebellious. But when the Fate ancestor in the shadow heard this, he laughed more happily. What a good child. I didn't misjudge you. Chapter 569. The first level of the Tianjiao list was not difficult at all. It only took less than 2 hours for all the participants to enter the second level one after another after receiving the instruction from the secret realm. Su Li sat cross-legged not far from the stone tablet. She looked up at the huge whirlpool that appeared after the instruction from the secret realm, but she didn't move. Her mind returned to her body. Hua, hua, hua. The sound of tide faintly came from the tendons and meridians. As time went by, the sound became louder and louder, and the whole space of the stone tablet was echoing. That was the sound of blood passing through. The blood sea was like tide. If Black Lotus's consciousness was not blocked by the Tianjiao secret realm, he would be shocked. This was the supreme realm in the legend of body refining. Because of various opportunities, Su Li's physical body had reached the limit of the human clan, which was comparable to the body of a demon beast. It was almost impossible for her to break through in this era, but in this secret realm, she easily broke through the shackles. Boom! With the last loud noise, a layer of stinky black impurities appeared on the surface of Su Li's body. After they were removed, a faint fragrance followed. The fragrance of the soul and flesh is flawless. Su Li's eyes flickered. She stretched out her white hands and looked at them. Then she put them back into her sleeves and stood up. At this moment, her physical body seemed to have completed the last transformation. She became white and tender, and even the temperament of a practitioner was completely restrained. At this moment, Su Li's whole body was full of the taste of returning to nature. If she didn't show her cultivation, she would be like a mortal woman who was ignorant of the world. No one could see how terrible the power was hidden in her delicate body. Suddenly, Su Li's eyes flickered. She seemed to think of something. Then she waved her hand to condense a water mirror in front of her. Although she had some guesses in her heart, Suli was still stunned when she saw herself in the mirror. At this moment, her appearance in the water mirror was not the appearance of this life. She had clearly returned to the beautiful appearance of her previous life. Only the black lotus mark at the corner of her eyes was still there. This mark not only didn't destroy the beauty, but also added a mysterious and coquettish temperament, which made people unable to move their eyes away. Sure enough, the integration of the soul and flesh is better. Although I am reincarnated, there has always been a gap between my soul and my physical body because of Black Lotus's means. Now the gap is gone. Suli touched her face, and her eyes were dim. No one knew what she was thinking. After a short moment, with a command in her heart, she activated the myriad spirit technique to conceal her true appearance, and then she stepped into the vortex without the slightest hesitation. After a short while, the darkness in front of him dissipated and was replaced by a narrow space. In the entire space of nothingness, there was nothing but a pitch-black stone in the middle. The second test is to test one's cultivation. It seems like this is a cultivation stone. It looks a bit different from Tinyak Attic's. In addition to the intelligence industry, Tinyak Attic also provided a lot of services for practitioners, including testing cultivation. Every branch of Tinyak Attic with a slightly larger scale had cultivation stones, so Suli had seen them. However, Tinyak Attic's cultivation stone was only the size of a fist, while the one in front of him was as tall as a person. Suli glanced at it and pressed her palm on the surface of the black stone. The power of yuanying poured out. Buzz! The cultivation stone immediately released dazzling five-colored brilliance, which shrouded Suli. After a while, the brilliance flickered, as if it could not confirm Suli's cultivation. Suli frowned. The cultivation stone seemed to notice her impatience. The flickering brilliance suddenly stopped, and a line of ancient characters appeared on the surface of the stone. Su Jizhou, Yuanying Realm, Tianjiao Ranking. Outside 100,000. Without thinking carefully, the cultivation stone in the nothingness disappeared into the nothingness and was replaced by two vortexes. The vortexes appeared in the sky. One of the characters was blood red, with the words fight, and the other was light cyan, with the words retreat. There are too many uncertainties in the second test, so I can't give a specific ranking. Then when I wait for the third test, Suli's eyes flashed with the meaning of thinking, and then she immediately stepped into the blood-red vortex. At the same time, in the outside square, a large number of low-level practitioners were spat out of the vortex. Huashichin, who had been waiting outside, stared at the vortex nervously. Suddenly, he looked happy and rushed to catch Xianin, who flew out of the vortex. "Young lord, it's good that you are fine. I thought." Xianin took a breath, rolled his eyes, and said angrily, "Thought what? You thought I would go to the third test? I am not a fool. Why would I go to the third test to die? Let's go. Go to the square to find the image of the light-splitting stone. Maybe we can see them if we are lucky." Okay. Not long after, the two came to the largest hall on the side of the square. At this moment, the hall was extremely lively and crowded with people. The walls of the hall were covered with mirror-like stones. There were images flashing in each stone, and they were different. The images reflected in them were the scenes in the Tianjiao secret realm. My father told me this, but I didn't believe it. Xianin sighed. Now I am convinced that the Tianjiao secret realm may really be a means for the sects in ancient times to train disciples. Otherwise, the layout of this hall can't be explained at all. Huashichin nodded and also sighed with emotion. The powerful figures in the ancient cultivation era can't be compared with today's. They have all kinds of amazing means. There were thousands of images in the hall. It took Xianin and Huashichin half an hour to explore with their divine awareness. Suddenly, Suli's indifferent face flashed in one of the images. Found it. Xianin's eyes brightened. Suli opened her eyes and came to a lonely mountain top. The fairy energy around the mountain top was misty, and it was full of white clouds. In the middle of the clouds, there was a platform suspended in the air. The divine light was flowing on it, and it was indestructible. Suli glanced at the sea of clouds, and found that in addition to her own mountain top, there were thousands of mountains evenly distributed everywhere in the sea of clouds. Most of the mountains had people, and the remaining mountains occasionally flashed with light, and there was one more person. Suli was also a newcomer. It didn't take long for her to sense hundreds of divine awareness sweeping over, but soon these divine awareness were all taken back. Haha, Yuanying realm. Another one comes to die. There are few female practitioners in the cultivation circle. I didn't expect that this woman is a rarer female casual practitioner. Don't enter the Tianjiao realm before you reach Huashan realm. Those who dare to challenge this iron law will end up miserably. There are a lot of useless people in Yuanying realm in the space of the immortal realm here. If nothing goes wrong, we can all be promoted to the next level of the immortal realm. We are lucky. Many voices came, and they didn't mean to hide it at all. Suli glanced at the direction of the voice and quickly took back her gaze. She was really not interested in a group of people in the early stage of Huashan realm. Most likely, I was assigned to the space of the immortal realm with the lowest cultivation in the second test of cultivation. Suli felt helpless. After the first two tests, the third test was the real battle of talents. Life and death were disregarded. Although it was cruel, the division of the space of the immortal realm left a glimmer of hope for many low-level practitioners. Because when every practitioner promoted to the immortal realm, the practitioners in this space could get a chance to choose again, quit, or participate in the battle. Life and death were really decided by a thought. While thinking, Suli suddenly felt something. She stretched out her right hand and floated in the nothingness. A jade slip fell into her palm. This jade slip was exactly the blank jade slip she put in the first test. But this jade slip was no longer blank, and several messages were flashing. Su Jizhou, Yuanying Realm, ranking 645590, Immortal Realm, 33, 33 Immortal Realm. Was it the meaning of the 33 heavens? Suli put away the jade slip and looked into the distance. More than 600,000 people participated in the battle, and there were a total of 20,000 mountains in this space. That was to say, the 33rd Immortal Realm was the last one. Whoosh! When the last practitioner appeared on the mountain in this space, the arena in the middle of the Sea of Clouds suddenly opened. According to Jiang Run, this arena would randomly choose a practitioner as the champion. As long as he could survive 10 rounds, he could be promoted to the next Immortal Realm, and his score would be improved accordingly. Thus, his ranking on the Tianjiao list would be improved. If he lost, everything would be over. Champion, Li Suiling. If you don't come to the arena within 10 breaths, it will be regarded as a forfeit, and you will be expelled from the immortal realm. The cold voice in the nothingness fell. The face of the young man in a yellow robe sitting on a mountain suddenly turned pale, and he was sweating profusely. The first champion meant that he would be regarded as a life-or-death enemy by more than 10,000 practitioners in this space. He was just in the early stage of Huashan realm, and there were hundreds of talents in this space who were in the middle stage of Huashan realm. Bad luck. Why am I so unlucky? The young man in a yellow robe let his imagination run wild, and he didn't realize that 10 breaths had passed. Ah! Suddenly, his eyes widened and he screamed. He was swept out of the immortal realm by a brutal force and disappeared. What a good-for-nothing. He doesn't even dare to go to the arena. If it were me, a practitioner on a nearby mountain saw this scene and immediately laughed. But before he finished laughing, his smile froze on his face. He seemed to have heard that if the champion gave up defending the arena, the next one would be the one closest to the original champion's mountain. The champion, Wang Fei. Looking at Wang Fei's dazed face, there was a burst of laughter immediately. I'm not a good-for-nothing. Wang Fei gritted his teeth. His feet moved even though there was no wind. He landed on the stage and looked around. I, Wang Fei, will defend the stage. The laughter suddenly subsided. You're a little brave. On top of a mountain, the young cultivator waved his sleeve with a cold expression. His figure crossed 1,000 meters and entered the arena. He looked at Wang Fei as if he was looking at a dead man. His voice was filled with mockery. But if your courage is not supported by your cultivation, then you're just a fool. Wang Fei, you're even more stupid than Li Suiling. Late stage of soul formation? Seeing the young cultivator, Wang Fei's pupils constricted, and fear filled his eyes. He subconsciously took out his defensive Dharma treasure, but the young cultivator waved his hand. Poof! A head flew high up into the sky, and his primordial spirit was destroyed. Wang Fei was dead. Accompanied by the heavy sound of the body falling to the ground, many cultivators came back to their senses. Then, they couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. What a powerful cultivation! What a fast technique! They didn't even see what technique this person used, and Wang Fei was killed. He didn't even have time to take out his soul formation intent. I know him. He's Shan Nan from the superior grade spirit sinking sect. His casting speed is extremely fast, and it's hard to defend against it. His strength is the best among his peers, second only to the saint of the sage sect. Looks like he'll be the first to advance. This person's strength shouldn't even be on the 33rd immortal platform. Chapter 570. After killing Wang Fei, Shun Nan remained calm. He stood on the arena and waited for Wang Fei's body to fall into the abyss under the arena. Then he said lightly, "Shun Nan of the Lingchen sect, guard the arena." As soon as these words were spoken, the surroundings fell silent. All the practitioners at the late stage of Huashan realm chose to be silent at the same time. Although it was necessary to compete in the Tianjiao battle, it was extremely stupid to fight to the death with the weakest 33 immortals. No answer. The opponent will be randomly assigned after 3 breaths. The voice of the Tianjiao secret realm was transmitted to everyone's awareness sea, but few people were surprised. Since the Tianjiao secret realm was created to train disciples, it wouldn't let anyone win too easily. However, for the real talents, such an arrangement would only waste a little time at most. Next, practitioners with different levels of cultivation were arranged to go on the arena. At first, there were a few who overestimated themselves and thought they could get lucky. After being killed by Shun Nan casually, the practitioners at the back finally realized their limits. They were all disheartened and admitted defeat immediately. Then, they were sent back to their original immortals. In the Tianjiao battle, if one didn't die, losing one match was not a big deal. As long as one could defeat 10 practitioners in a row, one could be promoted. But for most practitioners, losing meant the end. Even those at a lower level of the immortals could survive. What was the difference between advancing to a higher level and courting death? The 7th, 644446, Sun Delay. I admit defeat. The 8th, 64. I admit defeat. The 9th, I admit defeat. After 4 or 5 people admitted defeat, Shun Nan only had 1 match left before he could be promoted. The 10th, 645590, Su Jizhou. The next moment, Su Li was directly sent to the arena from the Tianjiao secret realm by a force of transmission. Seeing that it was a female practitioner in Yuanying realm who was sent to the arena, all the practitioners withdrew their gazes and lost interest in watching. Shin Nan looked at Su Li for a moment and frowned. He transmitted the sound. You don't admit defeat? Su Li continued to be silent. Shin Nan hesitated but didn't intend to make a move. Instead, he continued to transmit the sound. It's not easy to cultivate. You're still young. Why are you so stubborn? Hearing that, Su Li lifted the corner of her mouth and put away the thought of killing him. She transmitted the sound with interest. Fellow practitioner, you are obviously ruthless. Why are you soft-hearted when it comes to me? I feel a little strange. Shun Nan snorted. If you want to court death, I'll accompany you. An inexplicable smile appeared on Su Li's face, and she suddenly asked without any reason, fellow practitioner Shun, is the Lingchen sect in the Sai region? Shun Nan nodded patiently, and then he asked in a low voice, what do you want to ask? Su Li smiled meaningfully and said softly, I admit defeat. We will meet soon. Shun Nan was confused when he saw Su Li being ejected from the arena and returned to her original place. Before he could ask, a beam of light fell from the arena and sucked him into the upper immortal platform in the blink of an eye. Then, he disappeared. At the same time, in the video hall, the scene of Su Li admitting defeat did not attract the attention of others, except for 2 people. Xian and Hua Shichen stared blankly at the image of the light-splitting stone of the 33 immortals, and they were all confused. He admitted defeat? What is sister thinking about? Hua Shichen was speechless. After holding it in for a long time, he finally said, "My lord might have some sort of plan?" For Unity Region, in the secret realm, Suli looked at the pillar of light disappeared, and his eyes flickered. The Jiuzhou region was too special. It used to be monitored by various holy sects all the year round. Good seedlings were poached away early. Although Yin Zai and others were the mainstay, if she wanted to strengthen an I sect, new blood was indispensable. The neighboring Sai region was a very good choice. Of course, this was only because of Chan Nan's display, and she developed a trace of a good impression of the 4 Unity region. If she really wanted to carry it out, then she would definitely have to consider it carefully. 33 Immortal Foundations, upgraded to 645590. Do you wish to continue?
Yes.
Suli answered casually with the voice of consciousness. She glanced at the surrounding hills where people quickly disappeared. The team of nearly 20,000 people was instantly reduced to less than 3,000 people. Suli was a little surprised. Such a spectacle would only appear on the 33rd Immortal platform. She narrowed her eyes. After this round, she was the only one left in Yuanying realm. She could completely use the all-spirits tactics to hide her cultivation, but she didn't. In this Tianjiao battle, she took the initiative to settle accounts with holy sections. Naturally, the more high-profile, the better. Other practitioners naturally saw that she stayed, and many people sneered in their hearts. There is a way to heaven, but you don't want to take it. You insist on continuing to die. Stupid female practitioner. She probably got some adventure and became arrogant. She doesn't know that there is always someone better than her. Tut-tut. It's rare to meet a somewhat beautiful girl. Unfortunately, this is Tianjiao's secret realm. I'm afraid that she will die in a while. Next, Arena Defender, Zhao Liang. Before the voice died away, a flowing light shot into the arena. After the light dissipated, a young man with a malicious face came into everyone's sight. Another practitioner in the late stage of Huashan realm. Everyone sighed softly. Zhao Liang is the inherited disciple of the blood cult in the Ghost region. His means are extremely cruel, and he has a hobby of torturing and killing his enemies. Compared with him, Shun Nan is merciful. The selected practitioners should admit defeat as soon as possible. A kind-hearted practitioner transmitted a sound to remind her. Suli also received the sound. Looking in the direction of the sound, she saw a broad-built practitioner in yellow nodding to her with a kind face. His cultivation was also in the middle stage of Huashan realm. The Tianjiao battle is dangerous. Fellow practitioner Su escaped a disaster. You really shouldn't stay. The practitioner in yellow transmitted a sound mixed with a sigh. Suli smiled gently as a return gesture. Seeing this, the practitioner in yellow shook his head slightly. He could only hope that this woman could make it to the end of this round. The first challenger, 640987, Yao Shichuan, the consciousness of the secret realm said. The practitioner in yellow suddenly stopped shaking his head, and a look of horror appeared on his face. In the next moment, he was sent into the space of the arena. Tut-tut, it's you. Zhao Liang's eyes were sinister. With a smile, he slowly approached. Do you really think I can't hear your nonsense? Suli frowned slightly, but did not move. Yao Shichuan's heart tightened. Without saying anything, he stepped back and shouted, slap. A slap came out of nowhere, and the huge force forced the two behind Yao Shichuan back. Blood mixed with a few teeth spilled out. Admit defeat? That's so boring. I just started to enjoy it. How dare you spoil my fun? Zhao Liang was still approaching slowly, and the killing intent in his eyes skyrocketed. Yao Shichuan only felt cold all over, as if he was stared at by a poisonous snake. He gritted his teeth and said, Fellow practitioner Zhao, I, the Ghost Valley, wholeheartedly focus on medicine and never make enemies with others. I came here to maintain the survival of the sect. Why are you so aggressive? Never make enemies with others? Zhao Liang widened his eyes and immediately burst into laughter. His wild laughter echoed in the entire space, You are still so naive in the cultivation circle. You deserve to die." As he said, a blood-colored skull rushed out of Zhao Yang's sleeve. The ferocious and gloomy evil spirit instantly filled the entire arena. The blood-colored brilliance flashed away. Yao Shichuan felt a chill on his scalp. His bun fell to the ground, and the neat knot of hair spread out. You are too much." Yao Shichuan's eyes were red. He made a gesture with his hands, and a shadow of a medicine cauldron appeared in front of him. "You can kill me, but you can't humiliate me." An extremely fierce battle suddenly broke out in the arena. However, people with discerning eyes knew that Zhao Yang was not ruthless at all. What he liked most was to slowly torture his opponent to death. Yao Shichuan is finished. Someone shook his head. Although Yao Shichuan had been showing kindness and making good karma with others, who would be willing to offend a ruthless person like Zhao Yang for a little bit of good karma? Moreover, if he interfered in the arena battle midway, if he could really win, he would still have to fight 10 battles in a row, but he would have to fight 1 against 2. He would even have to fight Yao Shichuan's share. The spirit is willing, but the strength is insufficient. Fellow practitioner Yao. Someone's expression changed, but he finally sighed and chose to stand by. Yao Shichuan's face was full of despair. How could he not know that Zhao Yang was playing a cat-and-mouse game? However, he could not even admit defeat. "Master, this disciple has embarrassed you." Just when everyone sentenced Yao Shichuan to death, an indifferent but pleasant and magnetic female voice came from a lonely hill in the distance. "Zhao Yang, right? I will be your opponent." As soon as the words came out, everyone's expression froze. They immediately looked towards the source of the voice. Everyone was stunned and confused. They did not know what to say for a moment. The consciousness of the favored one did not care about the strength of the opponent. Seeing that someone interfered, the arena was immediately separated and the battle stopped. "It's her." Yao Shichuan was shocked to see Su Li enter the arena. He immediately became angry. What are you doing here?" "If I, Yao Shichuan, die, why do you have to pay with your life?" "Die." Su Li tilted her head and revealed a smile that dazzled Yao Shichuan. "These repulsive people don't deserve my name. But you, the Ghost Valley, which Ghost Valley is it?" Yao Shichuan was dumbfounded. Before he could say anything, he saw the barrier in the middle of the arena disappear. Zhao Liang's ferocious face reappeared as he laughed sinisterly. Yao Shichuan, you still have a lover? It must be more delicious to kill a fair and tender beauty." Yao Shichuan came back to his senses and his face darkened. "Let her go. Why hurt the innocent? How dare a good-for-nothing make such a request? Let your lover be your companion." Zhao Liang grinned grimly and took out 2 blood-colored skulls. He waved his hands to cut off the hair on top of Su Li's head. Yao Shichuan wanted to stop it, but his reaction was not as fast as Zhao Liang's. He could only watch this scene happen. Many practitioners could not bear to see it and turned their heads away. Boom! With an earth-shattering explosion, the blood-colored skulls were smashed into pieces for no reason. Su Li turned her head and smiled as soft as spring water. "Are you sure you don't want to call another helper?" Chapter 571. One move did not work. Zhao Yang's expression changed slightly. Then, he sneered. "So you have some skills. Since you want to court death, then as you wish, who wants to come on stage? This is a free victory." His voice resounded through the air. Many cultivators were tempted by his words. Then, a mid-stage soul formation cultivator from a heretical sect flew onto the stage. He clasped his fists at Zhao Yang and said with a smile, "Thank you, fellow Taoist Zhao. So it turns out that we're on the same path." "Well said." Zhao Yang showed a rare smile, but in his heart, he was a little disappointed that he was not at the late stage of soul formation. On his path of cultivation, he had been able to live well despite his ruthless methods. He had relied on his meticulous mind and cautiousness. This female practitioner named Su Juzhou was too calm, so calm that he had the idea of stopping immediately. However, if he backed out of the arena, he would be the laughing stock of the cultivation world for 10,000 years. Arena battle Begin? Before the voice of the secret realm's consciousness fell, Zhao Liang's eyes turned completely cold. The other evil path cultivator was not in a hurry to make a move. He waved his hand and two silver lights shot out. Then, they flickered in the air and actually directly crossed the arena, about to shoot into Yao Shichuan's face. He didn't dare to test Su Jiuzhou, but as long as Yao Shichuan was restrained, the odds of winning would be higher. The evil cultivators behind him finally sensed that something was wrong. This was clearly Zhao Liang's everlasting lightning transformation, an extremely fast-killing move that consumed a lot of energy. Why did he use it right from the start? Yao Shichuan's eyes widened as he stared at the silver light that was about to pierce his face. The overflowing killing intent caused his entire body to tremble, and it was as if his blood had frozen. I can't dodge it. I can't dodge. Right at this moment, a hand that was fair like jade lightly stroked over as if it was taking something out of a bag, and it pinched the two translucent arc-shaped flying needles between its fingers. At the same time, a voice that sounded like an orchid resounded by the ears of the three of them. His thoughts are not bad. He's a talent. It's a pity that your methods, I don't like them, so it's useless. Hearing those words, Zhao Liang's pupils constricted, and he immediately felt a suffocating feeling of life and death crisis. He no longer cared about face or shame, and his eyes were filled with impatience as he loudly roared, I admit. Bang! Bang! After the two explosions, there was a deathly silence. The cultivators who had been watching the spectacle, who had felt pity for Meng Hao, and who had been cold and detached, were now completely astonished. In fact, they had even forgotten to breathe. Medicine Stone Chuan was stupefied. His expression became extremely strange because of his complicated emotions. He was just compassionate and kindly reminded this woman. It seemed that she had unintentionally hugged onto a very thick thigh. Su Li walked lightly and waved her hand to disperse the two clusters of blood mist floating in the air. Then she turned her eyes and glanced at the 33 Immortals platforms indifferently. Su Jiuzhou, defend the arena. Oh my god, what did I see? A nascent soul stage cultivator killed a soul formation late stage cultivator with one move? Am I dreaming? Monster. He must be a monster. An evildoer is born. Qing Shui's circle, which has been peaceful for 1,000 years, will be in chaos again. In the Hall of the Light Diffraction Stone, the moment Su Li killed Zhao Liang in an instant, there was an uproar. The sound of discussion almost overturned the roof. Countless spies secretly sent the news back to their sections. At this moment, countless people were searching for the origin of this woman named Su Jiuzhou. Ho ho, heads of sects, don't make things difficult for me. In the Tianya Inn, Xiaowei looked at the heads of sects gathered in the hall and smiled bitterly. The things you have taken out really make me excited. But you also know that when the Tianjiao battle starts, I, the Tianya Inn, will not sell any information. This is an iron rule. If I violate it, my days as the Tianya Inn head will come to an end. Even if you give me your sects, I dare not accept them. Xiaoya head is as impartial as ever. Someone stood up and snorted. He cupped his fists and said, in that case, sorry to bother you. Let's go. With someone taking the lead, the heads of other sects in the hall left in the blink of an eye. Xiaoxi, you come to the hall. If anyone wants to see me, I will not see them. Xiaowei gave the order and entered the inner hall. Although he sent everyone away, his years of experience told him that this was the beginning of the trouble. Those holy sects would not give up until they got the information about Su Jiuzhou. Su Jiuzhou, the lord of an eye sect, is such an evildoer. No wonder those people follow her. Xiaowei sat down and spread out the file in front of him. The name Su Jiuzhou was written on the top of the file. This scroll was much thinner than the others, and there were only a few words on it. The origin of her daughter is unknown. She secretly controls the power of Jiuzhou region and is the lord of Jiuzhou region. It is extremely difficult to see through her. There seems to be a special method. Her cultivation appears to be in Yuanying realm, but her real strength must be extraordinary. Looking at the words on the file, Xiaowei was silent for a moment. He sighed, picked up the golden spiritual pin at hand, ran the Tianqing secret method, and wrote a line of words. Bone age is less than 2,000, but her combat strength is amazing. She takes in the remnants of reincarnation mirror. She has a big plan. Her surname is Su, and she is suspected to be the successor. When he wrote the second line, Xiaowei suddenly felt a sense of horror. His pupils shrank, and he immediately erased the second line. The future is already tilting to her? Xiaowei was still in shock, and his hand holding the spiritual pin trembled unconsciously. He took a deep breath and suppressed the horror in his heart. Qingshui's circle is going to be in chaos. No one answered. The opponent will be randomly assigned after 3 breaths. I give up. I give up. Even someone as strong as Zhao Yang was defeated by Su Li in 1 move. Who dared to go up? Therefore, no matter who was chosen by the consciousness of the secret realm, the latter would immediately increase the number of people, for fear that they would die as miserably as Zhao Yang if they gave up too late. Su Li leaned against the wall in boredom. She condensed the void softly and waited for the end of the battle. Tell me about your Gue Valley. Yao Shichuan, who stood aside cautiously, knew that the next words must be related to the future of the sect. He took a deep breath and quickly and clearly explained the situation of the Gue Valley. Our Gue Valley is a medicine sect. I heard that it was once affiliated to a sect with a great origin in ancient times, and even had some connection with the Gue Valley in the bloody accident of Holy Spirit. But we don't know why it declined later. Now the strength of the sect is barely maintained in the upper grade. If we don't send people to seize the luck in the Tianjiao battle, it is likely to fall to the middle grade. Many herbs of the sect need luck to maintain, otherwise the survival rate is too low. In desperation, the sect can only send many disciples to maintain the grade of the sect at all costs. Speaking of this, Yao Shichuan sighed deeply. I only got a place after competing with many senior and junior brothers of the sect. But I can't even advance to the lowest immortal state. If fellow practitioner Su didn't help me this time, I'm afraid I would be in danger. Su Li nodded and said, After I advance this time, you go out to protect yourself first. Maybe I have a way to maintain the grade of your sect. That was exactly what Yao Shichuan had been waiting for. He was delighted and quickly handed over his communication talisman. Fellow practitioner Su's means are mysterious. If you can really help my Gue Valley, I will reward you handsomely. Su Li waved her hand and motioned that he could go. She didn't want to help at first, but the word Gue Valley was related to the reincarnation mirror. How could she ignore it? Maybe the sect of Yao Shichuan would have the news of Qi Xianqing, the old man. It was inevitable to go to the Tianjiao battle. The process of admitting defeat soon came to the 10th person. After the last, I admit defeat, was finished, the guiding light fell in the Tianjiao space under the envious gaze of everyone. Su Li's figure suddenly disappeared. Yao Shichuan took a slight breath, suppressed the tumbling thoughts in his mind, and sent a message. I quit. He had to keep his life and wait for the female practitioner's message. Although this trip was dangerous, he always had a hunch that he couldn't defeat her in the Tianjiao battle. After a while, the guiding light dissipated. Su Li's feet landed on a stone platform on the top of the mountain exactly the same as before, and the identity jade slip fell at the same time. Su Jiuzhou, Cultivation Unknown, Ranking 13690, Immortal Base 1. The first immortal base. Su Li's pupil shrank immediately when she saw the words clearly. Maybe her performance was too shocking, and the consciousness of the secret realm directly promoted her from the last immortal base to the first. So, it's better. It saves me a lot of time. Su Li's eyes were cold. She looked up at the center of the immortal base and saw many familiar figures. The first immortal base was different from other immortal bases. In the center of the immortal base, in addition to a giant arena with more intense brilliance, there were 10 black crystal thrones emitting divine brilliance above the arena. Under the arena, a total of 20,000 platforms on the top of the mountain were all absent. The good-for-nothing of Shilua sect is dead. Why is there another unfamiliar one? Su Jiuzhou? A female practitioner? As soon as the corpses on the arena disappeared, someone noticed that Su Li appeared on the empty platform on the top of the mountain. They were slightly surprised when they couldn't detect Su Li's cultivation. There are 10,000 people on the Tianjiao list. Even if the top 20,000 geniuses haven't seen each other, they must have heard of their names. But this year seems to be a little different. There was a group of unfamiliar faces before, and now there is another one. Some disciples of the same sect talked in secret and looked at Su Li with vigilance. After all, none of those unfamiliar faces was easy to deal with. There is a tactical matrix on this platform, which prevents the cultivation from being exposed. Su Li frowned slightly and withdrew her divine awareness. No wonder no one felt strange when she came up for so long. Master, you are here. Yin Zai, who was on the platform on the top of the mountain far away from the arena, transmitted the sound with a hint of doubt in his tone of surprise. With your cultivation, you should be at the 33rd immortal base. How come you are so fast? I am indeed at the 33rd immortal base. Su Li transmitted the sound, but I came here after just one fight. Yin Zai was shocked when he heard that, and then he said thoughtfully, I remember a long time ago, the ancestor of the Void Sword sect once mentioned to me that the origin of the genius secret realm was not simple, and it was very likely that there was an intelligent spirit of the secret realm. Just like the world in the reincarnation mirror of Master. Is that so? Su Li nodded slightly and glanced at the black throne above the arena. Her tone turned cold. Why? Don't I see people from the holy sects? If you want to talk about the poisonous wife with more like-minded people, follow Yuri Literature on WeChat. Talk about life and find bosom friends. Chapter 572. I didn't understand the rules here until I came to the first immortal platform. Yin Zai continued, the holy sects who won the top 10 in the last session don't need to participate in the battle of 33 immortals platforms. The 10 black thrones above are actually 10 small practice spaces for the top 10 of the last session. Su Li's eyes flashed, and she said faintly, it seems that no one participated in the last Tianjiao battle. Yin Zai smiled bitterly. Yes, because too many talents in Qingshui Circle died, there was a shortage of talents. The top 10 of the last Tianjiao list was determined by Tynyak Attic. They were the great holy sons of the 4 top holy sects, Shura Holy Sect, Void Sword Sect, Han Sect, Xiyun House, and Shunbei Holy Sect. Shengtian Shrine occupied 2 of them. You should have seen it on the Starstone outside. In fact, the ranking has just been changed. Because the Tianyin tribe was destroyed, it really gave Tynyak Attic a headache. Su Li nodded. It was understandable that Ling Li was the first, but she was quite surprised that Ling Xian could rank 6th. After all, in the reincarnation mirror, Ling Xian didn't play a particularly important role, while others such as Su Qingtan and Yin Zai appeared frequently at a certain stage of her hypocritical previous life. Ling Xian, Su Li narrowed her eyes slightly and looked up at the 6th black throne. Then she quickly withdrew her gaze and looked calm. At the same time, Ling Xian, who was resting in the space of the black throne, suddenly opened her eyes. There was a trace of uncertainty in her eyes. Why did I feel a palpitation just now? She subconsciously wanted to pinch the incantation of the Fate Palace, but she paused and frowned. In the Shangxian Mountain, the deduction method was ineffective, so she couldn't predict the palpitation just now by any means. Ling Li has changed to the Fate Palace, and the general trend has been established. Will there be any accident? Who is scheming against me? Ling Xian's white and perfect face faintly showed a trace of gloom. The battle of 33 immortals platforms would last for a whole year. During this year, people would constantly advance, be eliminated, and die, until only 20,000 practitioners of the first immortal platform were left to enter the next round. The rules of the first immortal platform were different from those of the following 32 immortals platforms. It was a ranking battle with hidden rules. The number of battles was determined according to strength. No one knew when they would fight and how many battles they would fight. Su Li was quite helpless when she heard the news from Yin Zai, but she also felt it was normal. The whole competition of the talents of Qingshui in Qingshui realm lasted for a year. Quite bored, Su Li took out notes on the thatched cottage and began to study. Speaking of which, she was ashamed. Ever since she had stepped into the threshold of the destruction sword intent in the star path, she hadn't spent much time on the sword intent. Even now, she was still at the level of entering the next level. Yi Che, the old man, had lived for at least 40,000 years. Her understanding of the sword art was extraordinary. If she could comprehend this booklet, she would at least be able to reach the mastery level of the destruction sword intent, and the power of her sword art would at least double. Those who could come to the first immortal platform were no fools. Many had already sat down cross-legged and were quietly improving themselves. There were also many who were watching the battles to accumulate experience. The top 20,000 talents in Qingshui's circle fought against each other. Every battle had its highlights and was brilliant. If there was a rare battle, even Suli would sometimes put down the booklet in her hand and watch the battle. In this way, after a few days of leisure, Suli finally ushered in the first game. Rank 13690. Yes, rank 8,890. The cold voice of the secret realm sounded in the nothingness. Suli felt the jade rune in her hand was slightly hot, and then she was transmitted to the center of the platform. When she saw her opponent, her face suddenly showed a strange expression. It's her. The talents who had chosen to watch the battle were excited when they saw this scene. This woman has been promoted for several days. She is finally on the stage. Rank 13690, only 3,000 places away from entering the Tianjiao list. This initial rank is quite high. This woman is really not easy to deal with. However, when people saw the opponent of Suli, they all showed pity. She is really unlucky to fight against Zheng Shu. Yes, although Jiguang Hall is only a top-grade sect, Zheng Shu's performance is no less than that of holy sects. He must have had an adventure in the past 1,000 years. Otherwise, how could he reach the peak of Huashan realm from an insignificant Yuanying realm? The cultivation of the peak of Huashan realm. Except for those abnormal people, he is almost at the top. If Zheng Shu had not been on the stage so few times, he would definitely be in the top 1,000. I think it's still unknown who will win. Suddenly, Yin Zai, who had been silent, smiled casually. The discussion around immediately quieted down, and no one dared to talk casually. Although they didn't agree with Yin Zai's words, but this unknown ruthless person killed the holy son of a holy sect, who was ranked in the top 200, in one move. I've seen you. Zheng Shu's gloomy face showed a smile. Before entering the secret realm, you were from Jiguang sect. Suli slightly raised her eyebrows and smiled. Sometimes what you see with your own eyes is not necessarily true. You are afraid now? Zheng Shu couldn't hold back the anger in his heart, and his smile turned ferocious. You dare to humiliate my Jiguang Hall in the Tianyayan. Today, I will let that Hua feel the pain of losing a disciple. As he said, he lowered his hands, and a mark on his arm suddenly came to life. It turned into a long white snake and rushed to Suli in a flash of lightning. Suli yawned and patted the white snake casually. Boom! The lightning scattered all over the sky and fell on the shoulder of Zheng Shu, who was shocked and frightened. Good momentum. Suli squinted and smiled. She clapped her hands. But your strength is a little weak. Boom! Zheng Shu's physical body suddenly exploded, and the lightning that had not yet dissipated dotted the blood red, which was actually a bit beautiful. Silence. After the silence, a strong chill pervaded everyone's heart. A person at the peak of Huashan realm died like this? Some of them didn't even have the chance to speak, and Zheng Shu died. Ranked 13690. Victory. Ranking promotion. 639. Ranking 639. Any objection? The practitioner in yellow standing on one of the immortal platforms suddenly shivered, and his face turned pale with fright. He said immediately, no objection. Damn it, the secret realm actually didn't play cards according to common sense. This demon girl's strength was horrible, and her means were cruel. He was only at the peak of Huashan realm, and he would definitely be defeated by her in one move. So, the ranking is adjusted. The immortal platforms are vacant, and one person will be selected to be promoted from the ring below. Suli returned to the immortal platform, glanced at the ranking on the jade token, and sat down again to pick up notes in the cottage. This time, even if Yinzai didn't speak, No one dared to say a word. With the occurrence of this battle, the undercurrent in the outside world was even more turbulent. All the departments in charge of intelligence in the holy sects almost quarreled. Directly broke into the top 700. Where did this dark horse come from? What? She is Su Juzhou, indirectly promoted from the 33 immortal platforms to the first one? Investigate. Investigate it. And the two unknown pawns who are also amazing. If you can't find out their origin, all of you, get out of here. On the immortal platform, Ling Qinglan frowned and looked at Su Li, who was studying the unknown book. Compared to when they first met, she was much, much stronger. Thinking about it, in just 9 years, Su Juzhou actually completed the leap from Jindan realm to nature's test realm, and even a higher level. How did she do it? Is this what an evildoer is like? Breaking the convention and doing what ordinary people can't do? At this moment, his thoughts were a little complicated. Every moment, he was thinking that the person could reappear and lead them to complete the revenge. But his reason told him that this idea was too naive, so naive that it couldn't be realized. Perhaps today is the best way. I shouldn't struggle anymore. Ling Qinglan smiled slightly bitterly and suddenly became solemn. He transmitted the sound, Master. What you asked me to do before has been completed. Su Li's body suddenly stiffened, and then she immediately relaxed. She transmitted the sound with a smile. Is it finished? As I expected, Qinglan, you are finally willing to call me Master, like Yinzai and others? Very good. One day, I will let you know that you won't be disgusted with today's choice. Ling Qinglan smiled reluctantly. Thank you for your kindness, Master. I won't be disgusted. Oh, really? Su Li glanced at Ling Qinglan meaningfully, and then immersed herself in the swordsmanship again. This time, no one noticed the eye contact except for one person. Is that Su Juzhou? She is exactly the same as the portrait that my junior fellow apprentice gave me. In the first few immortal platforms, a handsome man in white with white hair and white eyebrows frowned and thought. Su Juzhou saved his junior fellow apprentice's life that year, so he remembered her appearance and intended to protect her. He didn't expect that he couldn't see through the strength of this woman. At least, it was impossible for him to be so casual when facing Zheng Shu. It seems that I don't need to protect her, but I can still convey my kindness. A smile appeared on the handsome man's face, and it immediately surprised several people in the immortal platforms around him. At the same time, on the other side of the immortal platform, the enchanting woman in purple who was leaning on the velvet sofa was smiling, but her beautiful eyes were hazy. She snorted coldly in her heart. Useless. Damn it. I tried so hard to introduce her, and she died so early. Is this woman Su Juzhou that my junior sister apprentice mentioned? She is a tricky person. It seems that I have to use the means of the Great Master. If she threatens the plan of the Great Master, it will be bad. In the following days, although many people died on the arena, it was meaningless garbage time for Su Li. She could only pass the time by notes on the cottage. During this period, talents died constantly, and the people in the immortal platforms below were replaced. On the 13th day, Zhang Run appeared from one of the immortal platforms with a pale face. Then he couldn't help but be excited and clenched his fists hard. Soon after, another acquaintance was promoted. It was Ying Chaoer of the Wanjian sect. Since the spiritual boat was in danger, that girl's attitude towards Su Li was a little too enthusiastic, which made Su Li quite uncomfortable. Lord Qingshui. Sure enough, the first thing that Ying Chaoer did after her promotion was to look for Su Li. After finding her, she transmitted the sound happily. Su Li smiled helplessly. When she was about to say something, the sound of the secret realm suddenly sounded. Chapter 573. Ranked 19999. Yes, ranked 2933. Before they could say anything, Ying Chaoer's figure was sent into the arena. Su Li's brows suddenly wrinkled slightly. I'm on the arena so soon? Ying Chaoer was slightly shocked, but she quickly adjusted her mind and stared at the effeminate-looking young man. The ground was soon covered with a layer of frost. What a strong chill. She was no match for him. Ing Chower took 2 steps back solemnly. Ranked 19999. Do you want to use me as a stepping stone just after your promotion? The effeminate-looking young man raised his head and looked at Ing Chower coldly. I don't have tender feelings for the fairer sex. Ing Chower was slightly angry. She raised her eyebrows and said coldly, Who asked you to have tender feelings for the fairer sex? Let's fight in the talent battle. Even if she was no match for him, she still wanted to try. Her master had trained them for many years, and she knew how much expectation her master had. How could she back down now? Even a trash like you won't admit defeat? Seeing Ing Chower's determined face, the effeminate-looking young man's face suddenly darkened. It seemed that he thought of something unpleasant. He snorted and a cold light flashed out. Crack! Ing Chower screamed and couldn't dodge in time. A bloody hole appeared on her right arm. Blood spilled. She was in danger. That is Zhao Qinlin of the Han sect, the younger brother of Zhao Qinyuan, the first holy son of the Han sect. He is not famous, but his strength is extraordinary. Ing Chower is no match for him. She should admit defeat earlier, otherwise. Yen Zai's worried voice came into her ears. Su Li's expression didn't change much, but she frowned more tightly. Lord Qingshui, what about Ing Chower? Zhang Run's anxious voice came. Although he had only known Ing Chower for a few days, he didn't want any of his companions to die in the talent battle. Su Li was silent for a moment and activated the Jade Rune. Spirit of the Secret Realm, can you intervene in the battle? After a moment of silence, the response slowly sounded in the space. The first immortal platform is not a low-grade one. Unless I admit defeat, no one can intervene. When this response came out, everyone's attention was immediately drawn away from the arena, and they all looked at Su Li. She's from the same force as the female cultivator in the arena. Maybe she's her junior sister. What a pity. That little girl seems to be dead for sure. Unable to interfere, Ling Qinglan and Yin Zai's faces were cold at the same time. Su Li narrowed her eyes, and several dangerous thoughts flashed through her mind. Suddenly, a gentle voice came into her ears. Fellow Taoist Su, please don't be impatient. I'm one of the top rankers, so I can send a voice transmission into the arena. Why don't I persuade Zhao Qinlin on your behalf? I believe that he definitely wouldn't want to make an enemy out of nothing. Su Li was slightly stunned. She looked up and saw a man in white sitting on the platform, smiling and nodding to her. Although she did not know who this person was, she did not hesitate and nodded in response. Thank you for your help. Don't worry, it's nothing. The white-robed man's expression became solemn, and his lips moved. As expected, Zhao Qinlin looked at Su Li on the arena. He looked a little shaken and moved much slower. When the heavily injured Ing Chower saw this, she was overjoyed. She immediately seized the opportunity to shout. However, at this moment, Zhao Qinlin's expression suddenly turned extremely gloomy and crazy. Puff! A throbbing heart was caught in his hand, and he ruthlessly crushed it. Bright blood sprayed out and dotted Zhao Qinlin's ferocious face. Ing Chower looked down at her pierced chest blankly. Her face full of blood showed a bitter smile, and her weak voice sounded intermittently. Master, I'm unfilial. Zhao Qinlin's expression did not change. He withdrew his hand from his chest, and a large amount of blood spilled on the arena. Ing Chower's soul just floated out of her physical body weakly. He immediately grabbed it and crushed it. At this point, Ing Chower's soul and spirit were both destroyed. Yin Zai gnashed his teeth. Even though he had faced too many life-and-death situations, he still felt very uncomfortable to watching Chower die in front of him. Not to mention the young Zhangran. His eyes were bloodshot. It was the first time for him to feel such a feeling of humiliation. Ling Qinglan took a deep breath, suppressed the boiling, killing intent in his heart, and looked in the direction of Su Li. He wanted to see what she would do. Su Li just stood there silently, and her face was as calm as a pool of stagnant water. Fellow practitioner Su, I'm sorry. This kind of thing is common in the cultivation circle. I'm sorry for your loss. The man in white saw that she stood there sadly, and transmitted the sound in silence, apologetically. Su Li quickly turned her eyes. Her eyes seemed to be soaked in ink, and they were as dark as gems. Anyway, thank you for your help. Can you tell me the process of transmitting the sound in silence just now? The man in white looked at Su Li's calm face and heard her calm tone. His pupils shrank, and a chill suddenly rose in his heart. What a horrible state of mind. He could not see any anger on her face. This woman, suppressing the surprise in his heart, the man in white hurriedly transmitted the sound in silence. Of course, I transmitted the sound in silence just now. Zhao Qianlin was naturally afraid of your strength and ranking. His performance in the Han sect was not very good, and the Grand Elder who supported him was unfortunately killed by a mysterious female practitioner. He would not deliberately make more enemies. Speaking of this, the man in white also felt that something was wrong and frowned. Later, Zhao Qianlin's face suddenly changed. It is very likely that someone also said something to him at that time. But what was the reason? The man in white couldn't figure it out. Su Li's eyes turned, and many clues flashed in her mind, but she could not get anything for a while. She sighed softly. Anyway, thank you very much for this time. I haven't asked your name yet. The man in white smiled faintly. I'm Lu Xian from the Holy Snow sect. Su Li's eyes flashed. In the early years, I met a young practitioner named Lu Yin, who was also from the Holy Snow sect. The man in white nodded. Lu Yin is my younger brother. Before leaving, my younger brother often mentioned you and hoped that I could take care of you. Now it seems that it is unnecessary. Lu Yin, thank you. Su Li recalled the boy in white who rarely talked in the Zhonglei's cave. He boasted that he was the 9th on the Tianjiao list at that time. Lu Xian shook his head helplessly. That boy was spoiled by me. Please forgive him, Your Excellency. Su Li looked back and calmly looked at the recovered arena. Fellow practitioner Lu Xian, I have a question, and I don't know if I can get an answer from you. Lu Xian nodded. Fellow Taoist Su, please speak your mind. What do you think of the bloody accident in Jiuzhou region that year? Su Li tilted her head and stared straight at Lu Xian with a faint smile on her face. People in our Jiuzhou region are all. I want to know what the outside world thinks of this. Lu Xian was baffled and suddenly felt his hair stand on end. However, he still said, the Holy Snow sect is too far away from the Jiuzhou region. In addition, the sect is strictly prohibited from participating in the Life Palace's plan. Although I've heard a lot of hearsay, only those who truly participated in the Holy Maiden know what she was like. I don't dare to jump to conclusions. Lu Xian answered very cautiously, and he might have even noticed some clues. In Taoist Lu's hands, the future of the Sacred Snow sect will definitely flourish. Su Li praised and ended the conversation. After Lu Xian sat back on the immortal platform, he thought about it carefully. He always felt that there was another meaning hidden in this sentence. But after thinking about it, he felt that he thought too much. Even someone as strong as Ling Li can't make me feel frightened. This woman is very terrible. It's better not to offend her. I'm afraid that Zhao Qianlin. Lu Xian frowned and made a conclusion secretly in his heart. The outside world, Xianin and Huashichen, who had been paying attention to Su Li, were shocked when they saw this scene. Zhao Qianlin, all the people in Han sect deserve to die. Huashichen couldn't help but curse in a low voice. He didn't forget to comfort Xianin beside him. Don't worry. Lord Qingshui will definitely avenge Qiaoer. Xianan's eyes were red, and he nodded. Although he was sad, he was not angry. He knew his sister much better than Huashichen. He was afraid that not only Zhao Qianlin, but the whole Han sect would bear the anger of his sister. Zai, how long has it been? Su Li put down the booklet in her hand, raised her head, and saw the arena that had been cleaned many times. It's been more than 3 months. Yin Zai replied helplessly. In the past 3 months, the 3 of them didn't even have a fight, which was really puzzling. Zhang Run won 3 games and entered the top 10,000, but he almost reached the limit. In the past 3 months, people died constantly, and some people were promoted from the lower immortal platforms. Except for a group of people in the first immortal platform, almost half of the people in the first immortal platform had been replaced. Because they didn't fight, the rankings of the 3 people also fell. Yin Zai and Su Li were fine, and they only fell hundreds of places. Because Ling Qinglan didn't fight for a long time, his ranking had fallen to more than 10,000, even lower than Zhang Run. Even if Ling Qinglan had good self-cultivation, he didn't look good during this time. Su Li shook her head, and the voice of the secret realm sounded again. Rank 13332, yes, rank 388. Ling Qinglan was slightly stunned, and then his eyes lit up. Wasn't he ranked 13,332? Swish. Two rays of light flashed from the immortal platforms, and two figures appeared on the arena. The familiar frost spread to Ling Qinglan's feet. Ling Qinglan naturally wouldn't retreat like Ying Xiao, but he took 2 steps forward. Zhao Qianlin? I'm so lucky. He raised his head and saw Zhao Qianlin's face. Zhao Qianlin's usually indifferent face showed a very bright smile, and his killing intent swept over. Zhao Qianlin frowned. He was unfamiliar with this person, and he had never met him before. Do I have a grudge against you? Originally, no. Ling Qinglan's eyes were cold, and he waved his hand. Countless diamond-shaped shadows rushed out from behind and covered the whole shield in the blink of an eye. Now, if you die too casually, I will feel sorry. Chapter 574. 34 Chinese Network. In 1 second wonderful pop-up window free reading. The purple shadows that filled the sky poured down along with the voice, densely packed like purple clouds pressing down on the border. What kind of spell is that? Zhao Qianlin was shocked. He waved his sleeves and threw out a round shield. He crossed his hands, and the round shield immediately trembled and expanded, shielding him behind. Ding, 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 ding. The purple shadows kept falling, and the dense crashing sounds resounded through the nothingness. Zhao Qianlin's face became paler every time he hit. Even if he gritted his teeth, he couldn't help but step back. He was shocked. Such strength. Zhao Qianlin hated in his heart. Damn it. This person is ranked below 10,000. But he is so strong. There is no trace of physical practice. He is definitely not in the Huashan realm. He must be a mighty in nature's test. If I don't admit defeat, I will definitely die. He thought quickly in his heart and was about to admit defeat. But how could Ling Qinglan let him do that? Whenever Zhao Qianlin wanted to admit defeat, he would be beaten back by Ling Qinglan with one move. Zhao Qianlin is suppressed by someone who is ranked below 10,000? Tut-tut, Zhao Qianlin is a talent in the first echelon. His strength is only below those great holy sons, and he is even more powerful than the great holy sons of holy sections. However, he is beaten by an unknown young man and can't even admit defeat. Is there going to be a big change in Qingshui Circle? Many talents were stunned and had their own thoughts. There must be something wrong when something abnormal happened. There were dark horses every year, but it was rare this time. Lu Xin looked at the one-sided crushing in the field, and he was stunned and thoughtful. This person is extremely powerful and can suppress Zhao Qianlin instantly, but he chose to play like a cat playing with a mouse. I can faintly see a trace of anger. Is it because of the female practitioner who died just now? He glanced at Su Li, who looked indifferent, and then glanced at Yin Zai, who was expressionless. His eyes suddenly darkened. Is it? I admit defeat. Puff. Zhao Qianlin spat out blood and flew out awkwardly. He fell heavily on the ground, leaving a trail of blood behind. Ling Qinglan drew back his sleeves and gathered them. He walked over step by step with a cold face. Did I say you could talk? Zhao Qianlin's face was deathly pale. He wanted to crawl up, yet his body trembled uncontrollably. Obviously, he was an arrow at the end of its flight. Let me go. I have no enmity with you. The hoarse voice transmission sounded in Ling Qinglan's ears. Ling Qinglan smiled slightly and his eyes were cold. He said, No grudge? What you should do now is to accompany Qiao as soon as possible. Ying Qiao, the female cultivator? Zhao Qianlin's eyes widened. He finally understood why he was in such a predicament, and he felt extremely regretful in his heart. He immediately ignored the warning from that person and swiftly sent a voice transmission. Wait, I was also instructed by someone to kill Ying Qiao by mistake. Now that I think about it, she clearly wanted me to become enemies with you and then destroy the relationship between the Han sect and your sect. Ling Qinglan slowed down and frowned slightly. Who is she? Zhao Qianlin immediately heaved a sigh of relief. I can tell you, sir, but only if you let me go and let me admit defeat. Ling Qinglan sneered and said, Let you go? Are you dreaming? Zhao Qianlin's face changed slightly. I am Zhao Qinyuan's younger brother. If you kill me, he will not let you go. Why do you offend the whole Han sect for a dead person? Ling Qinglan sneered and changed his gesture. Two purple shadows instantly penetrated Zhao Qianlin's chest and brought out a vigorous heart. Zhao Qianlin's heart was full of vitality. Dirty. Zhao Qianlin's face instantly turned pale. The odd-shaped jade on his neck flashed rapidly. He looked up with longing. In the space of the seventh throne, the man who looked similar to Zhao Qianlin suddenly woke up from meditation. He reached out to hold the odd-shaped jade on his neck. His eyes were as deep as a quiet lake. After a moment of silence, he closed his eyes again. The seventh throne didn't move for a long time. Zhao Qianlin was absent-minded for a moment and suddenly laughed crazily. Ha ha ha, Zhao Qinyuan. Zhao Qianlin suddenly raised his head. The jealousy and hatred in his eyes seemed to burn the void. He stared at Ling Qinglan for a moment and trembled. Then he grabbed his heart crazily and crushed it into pieces. Ling Qinglan was stunned and unconsciously let go of the gesture. Zhao Qianlin's physique was ordinary. He lost his heart and his physical body was destroyed. There was no possibility for him to recover. Those who kill will be killed. Zhao Qianlin's weak voice sounded with deep hatred. I don't hate you. I can even tell you who is behind it. But in exchange, you have to kill Zhao Qinyuan. What brotherhood? It's all fake. Zhao Qianlin became weaker and weaker. He laughed so hard that his mouth was full of blood. Can you do it? Ling Qinglan nodded. Even if you don't say it. No one in Han sect can leave Shangxian Mountain alive. Zhao Qianlin was slightly stunned. Ling Qinglan smiled and reached out to extinguish the last aura on Zhao Qianlin's forehead. Even, the master will not allow Han sect to continue to exist. Go in peace. Master. I see. Zhao Qianlin came to a sudden understanding, and he actually closed his eyes with a trace of serenity. Ranking 13,332. Promotion, 388. Everyone was silent. Around Lu Xian, several people frowned. Zhao Qianlin's strength is definitely not weak, but he died in the hands of this person. This person's strength can be ranked in the top 30. The bloody accident of Holy Spirit has affected many sections. Many holy sons and holy virgins have broken the taboo and reached the realm of nature's test, which is comparable to the elders of holy sections. The top 30 are all in nature's test. That is to say, this person also broke the taboo and is in nature's test. We rely on the influence of our sections. What does this person rely on? Thinking of this, many people's expressions changed slightly. They all thought of a guess, and then they all looked at a young man in a black robe with a vertical thunder pattern between his eyebrows. The young man had no choice but to say, I just observed him with the pupil skill, but I couldn't find any flaws. He should not have changed his face. Everyone was suddenly disappointed. Even the holy son of Fenglai sect can't see it. It seems that the guess is wrong. Lu Xian's eyes flashed, and he suddenly remembered what Su Jiuzhou asked him about the bloody accident of Holy Spirit. Was it also possible that the secret skill of camouflage they used could not be seen through by the pupil skill of Fenglai sect? Su Jiuzhou, the same surname is Su. How can there be such a coincidence in the world? Those holy sects in those years seemed to be in trouble. Lu Xian was gloating in his heart. He did not have a good impression of the life sect's lackeys. On the other side, Ling Qinglan returned to the immortal platform and received a lot of awe. Master, before Zhao Qianlin died, after listening to Ling Qinglan, Su Li nodded slightly. She pondered for a moment and transmitted the sound to Lu Xian. How much do you know about Tian Meiji of Meiji sect, fellow practitioner Lu? Lu Xian was slightly shocked and quickly reacted. It's her? He frowned for a moment and said, Meiji sect is in our holy snow region, and I have also heard of the talents of the sect. Xian Meiji, a good friend of my younger brother, was the leader of the next generation. Although Tian Meiji was a holy girl, She was not powerful because of her low talent. It was very likely that when Xian Meiji grew up, it would be the time for Tian Meiji to abdicate. But just a few years ago, Tian Meiji's talent suddenly broke out, and her cultivation soared rapidly. She crossed several realms and directly stepped into nature's test from the bottom. She became the top 30 on the Tianjiao list. The news of my younger brother's good friend became less and less. Speaking of this, Lu Xian paused slightly and carefully worded, "Fellow practitioner Su, since I know your identity, Tian Meiji is also likely to know it. Your junior sister apprentice was killed just now. I guess she was targeting you." "It's her indeed." Su Li nodded without hesitation. She smiled and nodded. "Thank you for telling me everything, fellow practitioner Lu. No one needs to intervene in this matter, and I will handle it myself." "Fellow practitioner Su, you are too serious." Lu Xian had a guess about Su Li's identity in his heart. Hearing this, he suddenly felt flattered. The questions hovering in his mind were on the tip of his tongue several times, but he couldn't ask them in the end. The Tianjiao battle once again entered the normal process. Su Li sat back on the immortal platform and didn't look at Tian Meiji's. For her, it was meaningless. The space of the secret realm calmed down, but the atmosphere outside became more and more tense. Even the hall watching the video was affected. High-level officials of holy sects came to question one after another. There was no problem with Huashichen and Xian'an's background, so they were soon fooled. After watching the people of holy sects leave, Huashichen breathed a sigh of relief and transmitted the sound carefully. "The people who killed Zhao Qianlin are the group of people who knew Lord Qingshui before, right?" Xianan nodded with lingering fear. "I didn't expect them to be so terrifying. I seem to have made a lot of jokes with them. Where did this group of people come from? If they can all join the Holy Land, how powerful it will be." Huashichen sighed whimsically. "Now the outside world is in a mess. Lord Qingshui and others are under absolute attention. I hope they can survive this disaster safely." Xian'an's eyes flashed and he nodded. Based on his understanding of his sister, he always felt that the current situation was within his sister's expectation. "What does my sister want to do?" Xian'an's heartbeat accelerated slightly, and he calmed down after taking a deep breath. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, it had been half a year since the third round of the immortal platform battle began. In the past 3 months, the number of substitutions of the first immortal platform was much less than that of the previous 3 months, and the number of talents who died was also less. In the next 6 months, there would be even fewer. It was worth mentioning that although Zhang Run's cultivation was not high, he actually stayed until now. His cultivation also broke through in the battle and reached the late stage of Huashan realm. Relying on the secret skill that Ling Yimo taught him, he persisted on the edge of 20,000. It was extremely difficult for him to do this. "This boy is a good seedling." Ling Yimo got lucky. There was a trace of envy in Ling Qinglan's words. Since Su Li destroyed the Yin tribe, his skills were facing extinction, and he really needed to find a successor. "After this, you will have enough time to find one," Su Li said casually and transmitted the sound to Zhang Run. "Do what you can and keep your trump card. Your master is still counting on you to send him off." Zhang Run was adjusting his breath. When he suddenly heard this sentence, he almost went astray. "Ahem, thank you for your concern, Lord Qingshui. I know what to do." Chapter 575. You can search for Poisonous Wife on Baidu. You can search for the latest chapter. Half a year passed in the blink of an eye. The battle of immortals was coming to an end. The talents who won the first immortal were about to return. The immortal Ascension City became more and more lively. A large number of practitioners poured into the city, wanting to see the top talents of Qingshui Circle. At this moment, in the Tianya Inn, Xiaowei listened to Xiao Xi's words. "Tianya Master, we were almost set on fire 23 times, attacked 35 times at night, and robbed 244 times this year. Fortunately, we were prepared and didn't let them succeed," Xiao Xi said proudly, puffing out his not-so-strong chest. Xiaowei rubbed his eyebrows. The frequency was much higher than in previous years. "Waiter, check in." An old and hoarse voice rang out from the outer hall. Xiaoxi immediately ran outside. I'm sorry, old senior, our inn is already full. Xiaowei didn't pay attention to the outside world. He frowned and thought for a moment. Suddenly, he felt that something was wrong. Why was it so quiet outside? He raised his eyebrows, got up, pushed the door open, and walked into the outer hall. Suddenly, he saw Xiaoxi explaining something with cold sweat on his forehead. Obviously, he was tired of dealing with it. Opposite him stood a tall, white-haired old man in a loose black robe. He didn't look good. He took a step forward and said with a smile, "How did our Tianyan offend you, senior? If Xiaoxi is not good enough, please let me know." The white-haired old man turned his head and stared at Xiaowei with his gray eyes. "Are you the sub-valley master of the Tianya Valley?" Xiaowei stiffened with just one glance. He had the illusion of being stared at by the ancestor of the sect. He breathed slightly, but he could barely maintain a smile. He waved his hand and said, "Senior, it seems that you came prepared. Why don't we talk in the inner hall?" The white-haired old man snorted. "That's more like it." Then, he walked into the inner hall. Xiaowei took a deep breath and transmitted his voice to Xiaoxi. "Go and make tea. Boil ancient spring." Xiaoxi's face changed slightly, and his hair was a little numb. "That's all spirits. Don't talk nonsense. Go." The inner hall wasn't big, and the decorations were simple, making it look rather grand. After the two of them sat down and Xiaoxi poured tea, Xiaowei, who had been observing the white-haired old man, finally probed, "Heavenly Star Valley, that is a very ancient name. We, the Tainyikatic, have not used that name since the Qingshui calendar. Senior, could it be?" The white-haired old man took a sip of tea, and a trace of nostalgia flashed in his eyes. Although the name has changed, the tea used to serve guests still tastes the same. How nostalgic. When Xiaowei heard this, the hands hidden in her sleeves trembled, and her expression changed. Did he really live since the myriad spirit calendar? Just how old was this guy he had encountered? After leisurely drinking a cup of tea, the white-haired old man put down the teacup and glanced at the stiff Xiaowei. He snorted coldly and said, "Stupid kid, do you really think you can fool this old man with that little bit of cleverness? If not for the fact that you are a disciple of Heavenly Star Valley and that my temper has weakened over the years, would you still be standing here talking to me?" "Please forgive me, senior." Xiaowei broke out in a cold sweat. He cupped his fists and said, "I didn't mean to offend you." "Humph, it's good that you know you were wrong." The white-haired old man pointed at the table and said, "With the intelligence ability of your Heavenly Star Valley, you probably have some guesses about this old man's identity." Xiaowei smiled embarrassedly. At this moment, he also realized that the horrible old monster in front of him didn't seem to be so difficult to talk to. He relaxed a little and answered honestly, 1 year ago, a few days before the talents battle began, in a forbidden place in the immortal Ascension City, the Ghost City's thatched cottage suddenly collapsed. At that time, I sent people to investigate it, and then I found a lot of information. Speaking of this, Xiaowei paused slightly and asked cautiously, "Senior, are you Yi Che, Senior Yi?" The white-haired old man stroked his beard and said with a smile, "The intelligence of Heavenly Star Valley is really worthy of its reputation." This sentence clearly meant that he admitted it. Xiaowei sucked in a breath of cold air. A ghost from 40,000 years ago was actually able to survive until now. Just what secrets were hidden in that thatched hut? "Boy of Heavenly Star Valley, this old man is here to know what happened to the ghost clan. Can you tell me?" Xiaowei went straight to the point. Xiaowei suddenly looked embarrassed. "Senior, you also know the rules of Heavenly Star Valley. I'm penniless." Yi Che interrupted him with a calm expression. "But your Heavenly Star Valley can also exchange intelligence for intelligence, right? I'll give you 3 chances to ask questions, and you answer my doubts twice. How about that?" Xiaowei was waiting for this sentence, and a smile appeared on his face. "Deal." After a long time, Yi Che appeared at the door of Tianya Inn with his sleeves rolled up. He looked up at the immortal Ascension Mountain in the distance and left Tianya Inn calmly. Inside the room, Xiaowei sat at the table in a daze. The tea had already become cold. "Cliff Lord?" Xiaoxi said cautiously. Xiaowei came to his senses and sighed softly, I wanted the intelligence of Yi Che just for the position of this generation's cliff lord. I didn't expect that Su Jiuzhou was actually from the Ghost Clan. He shook his head and smiled bitterly. The hatred between the Ghost Clan and Shangtian Shrine is absolutely irreconcilable. This time, I'm afraid that there will be a big fight. Xiao Si scratched his head. Don't we need to remind Shangtian Shrine? Xiaowei glanced at Xiao Si strangely. I leaked the intelligence to the Ghost Clan. If I go to inform Shangtian Shrine at this moment, I'm not a man on both sides. It seems to make sense. Xiao Si suddenly understood, and then he was distressed. Then shall we take sides directly? Su Jiuzhou, that female practitioner, can she do it? Even if she can't, she has to do it. Xiaowei seemed to have overcome some obstacles in his heart, and his tone was firm. When necessary, I will help her. As he said, he looked up, and his eyes seemed to pass through countless fierceness and fell into the Tianjiao secret realm. Let me see exactly how capable you are. A few days later, the periphery of the Black Stone Square was full of practitioners who came to join in the fun. At exactly noon, the calm whirlpool suddenly began to expand continuously. Then, it spat out countless rays of light with a swoosh, transforming into numerous figures that fell into the square. They are coming. They are coming out. Only the top talents of the first immortal platform are qualified to appear from this exit. Is that the top talents? What a horrible momentum. Just a glance at me will suffocate me. The cultivators who were waiting suddenly burst into an uproar. There were also many cultivators who stared at the vortex with unfriendly expressions, as if they were waiting for someone to appear. Finally, after a burst of rays of light, Su Li and the other three appeared in the square. At this moment, the noise almost overturned the sky. It's the three dark horses. They are so powerful. They are unknown, but they have entered the top 100 of the Tianjiao list. I don't know if they can continue to create miracles in the Battle of Shangxian Mountain. Maybe even the top 10 of the Tianjiao list will be pulled down. The top 10 of the Tianjiao list this time are all decided by Tianqing Valley. They are not qualified at all. Someone just said this, but he was so scared that he shut up immediately. Swish, swish, swish. The whirlpool spat out rays of light for the last time, and 30 figures appeared at once. The rays of light dissipated, and Lu Xian and others appeared one after another. They are the top 30 of the Tianjiao list. The peerless strongman of our Qingshui circle must be born from these people. The future giants are lucky to see them. I have no regrets in my life. The 10 most intense rays of light are the top 10 of the Tianjiao list. Su Li looked at them and nodded slightly to greet them. Then she looked away, and her eyes fell on the first 10 most intense rays of light. The rays of light scattered. The familiar black robe and the tall figure finally appeared. Two equally indifferent gazes met unexpectedly. Like stagnant water, there were no waves. Like a deep pool, there was no bottom. Time seemed to be frozen at this moment. At this moment, her state of mind was actually extraordinarily calm. The chaotic love and hatred of the past had been buried deep like fine wine, and it was quiet and mellow. Ling Li didn't look away, and a strange feeling gradually rose in his heart. He didn't know why he didn't avoid her eyes. Maybe it was the familiar feeling in his soul, or the black lotus mark at the corner of her eyes was inexplicably dazzling. Is it you who killed my brother? A cold voice suddenly broke the silence. Su Li moved her eyes away and looked at the man in cyan who walked slowly to Ling Qinglan. Ling Qinglan looked at him and teased, "Zhao Qinyuan?" Zhao Qinyuan's face was cold and solemn. Hearing Ling Qinglan's indifference, he said coldly, "I won't let you go out of the Shangxian mountain alive." Hearing that, Ling Qinglan remembered that Zhao Qinyuan didn't even dare to fart in front of him. He couldn't help but shake his head and laugh. "I hope you won't regret it at that time." Ridiculous. Zhao Qinyuan snorted, but he didn't want to continue to be entangled in this matter. He swung his sleeves and left. Almost everyone in the holy sects knows what happened between the two brothers. You killed Zhao Qianlin, and he was very happy. Yanzai sneered, especially after the death of the Grand Elder of Han sect. He wanted to kill you for a long time. At this moment, He came here to say some harsh words just to save face. Let's go. After saying that, Su Li was about to turn around and leave. Ling Li thought for a while. He wanted to ask her several times because of the strange feeling just now, but he didn't move because of his identity at the moment. Fellow practitioner Su, take care. Suddenly, Ling Xian's voice, which was pretending to be elegant, came from beside him. Su Li stopped and looked back with some doubts. What's the matter? Ling Xian walked slowly to Su Li with a very friendly and cordial smile on her face. Sister, you look so young. In this battle of a mortal's foundation, you have become famous. I don't know if you have the honor to be my friend. Be my friend? Su Li suddenly smiled, but it was hard to tell what kind of smile it was. Ling Li instinctively felt that it was not a happy expression. Ling Xian didn't feel anything. Seeing that Su Li was more and more enthusiastic, she thought faster. When she was about to continue to praise Su Li, she saw the delicate and soft face suddenly became as cold as an iceberg. It's a pity that you, Ling Xian, are not qualified to be my friend. Chapter 576. You can search Poisonous Wife in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. As soon as this was said, the noise in the field immediately became silent. Ling Xian's expression was instantly stiff, and she reluctantly continued to smile. Sister, did I say something wrong? This joke is not funny. Su Li looked at her coldly and did not respond. Ling Xian's expression finally became cold, and she said in a deep voice, I learned from the Fate Ancestor, and I am also the candidate for the next power of Shengtian Shrine. It is the first time that someone told me that I am not qualified. Su Jiuzhou, you are very good. You don't need to worry about me. Su Li smiled, as if she didn't hear the two words that showed off her identity. She casually responded, waved to the two people around her, and turned away. Ling Xian looked at her back, and her pretty face was cold. Su Jiuzhou is so bold that she even dares to offend Ling Xian. She must have someone to rely on. Otherwise, isn't she courting death? I'm afraid that there will be a good show in the 4th round of Immortals Mountain. It's a pity that we can't see it through the light-splitting stone. Ho ho! Ling Xian feels inexplicably happy when she suffers a loss. Ha 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 ha, keep your voice down. This woman never looks down on others. The evil emperor is cold in nature. She pretends to be neither. She really thinks that she can compete with the evil emperor. Although the discussion was very low, it could still be heard. Ling Li's lips twitched. Ling Xian's face had already turned red with anger, and it had a tendency to develop to the color of pig liver. Let's go. Ling Xian squeezed the words out of her teeth, and the maids around her immediately followed her. After the farce was over, it soon became a topic of discussion among practitioners and spread throughout the immortal city. Su Jiuzhou, what a crazy female practitioner. She even looks down on the top holy sections. Her background must be great. But apart from other top holy sects, which force in Qingshui Circle can compete with Shangtian Shrine? I don't know. At the same time, Su Li and the other three returned to the spring courtyard of the Tianya and after meeting with Xianan and Huashichen, Dongfang Wuxue and others who lived in the autumn courtyard didn't avoid it and came directly. Huashichen counted the number of people. His expression was heavy, but there was a hint of relief in it. The Jiguang sect lost 7 people, the Wanjin sect lost 2 people, and the Holy Land lost 3 people, which is less than I thought. Including Lord Qing Shui, little brother Jiang Run also made it to the 4th round, far exceeding my expectations. Jiang Run couldn't hide the sadness in his eyes, but his emotions were still relatively stable. Elder, you flatter me. I was just lucky. As for the 2 youngsters from the 10,000 Swords Pavilion, my condolences. The casualty rate in the Heaven's Pride battle is extremely high. It's already a miracle that 2 of you survived. Huashichen comforted him. The 2 people sitting on one side looked at each other. They suddenly stood up and bowed to Ling Qinglan. Thank you, senior brother, for helping junior sister take revenge at all costs. They understood that it was utterly impossible for them to seek revenge from Zhao Qianlin by relying on the little bit of cultivation they possessed. It's fine. Ling Qinglan waved his hand and said, "Sit down. I have my reasons for doing this. I will tell you in detail later." The two were slightly stunned when they heard the words, and sat down full of doubts. Li Hai glanced at Su Li, took out a light diffraction stone, and placed it in the center of the table where everyone sat around. With a clatter, the light diffraction stone reflected a list, which was densely packed with rankings. This is a miniature list made by Tynyek Attic. The information on it is incomplete, but it can be used as a reference. Li Hai explained and sat down. Hua Shichen repeatedly cupped his fists and thanked him. "This item is extremely expensive, and I can't afford it. It's really generous that Lord Li can share this item." Li Hai suddenly smiled and said meaningfully, "Hua Shichen, don't be a stranger. We will have many opportunities to cooperate in the future." Hua Shichen was confused. At this moment, the list was in front of him, and he didn't ask in detail. He turned his head and focused on the list. Shangtian Shrine, Lingli, ranking 1. Most of the talents on this list have marked their origins, which is much clearer than the Jade Token ranking announced in the Heaven's Pride Mysterious Realm. Xianan exclaimed and looked down. Soon, he found a ranking without Su Li, Unknown Force, Su Jiuzhou, ranking 29. He couldn't help but take a deep breath, and then said happily, "Sister, you are really amazing." In this way, after the 4th round, our Jiguang sect will be promoted to the name of a holy sect. Su Li smiled. "Let's continue to look down." "Okay." Xianan continued to look down excitedly, and soon found the next one. Unknown Force, Unknown Name. Ranking, 87. He read it out, looked up at Ling Qinglan and Yen Zai, and saw Ling Qinglan take out a jade token, on which the word 87 was flashing. Then Yen Zai also took out a jade token, on which the word 92 was flashing. "Tut, my luck is still worse than yours," Yen Zai said helplessly. Ling Qinglan nodded in agreement. The gap of 4 or 5 ranks doesn't mean anything. The ranking of Shangxian Mountain in the 4th round will inevitably change. Of course. Yen Zai reached out and hugged Zhang Run, who was sitting aside. "Don't look at Zhang Run. He is now in the back. Maybe he can run to the top 100 in the end." Zhang Run waved his hand repeatedly. "How is that possible?" Yen Zai smiled and didn't say much. At this time, Dongfang Wushue walked in from the door and said, "The statistics of Tynyek Attic are out. In the 3rd round of the Battle of Immortals, nearly 60% of the talents who went to participate in the battle died. In the end, almost all the low-level immortals were empty. The practitioners who got the information of Tynyek Attic outside also had a heated discussion. More than 600,000 people went in, and only more than 200,000 people came out. The Tianjiao battle is really a real meat grinder. In the bloody accident of the Holy Spirit, only 100,000 talents died. Many talents who died in the Tianjiao battle are not qualified. How can they be compared with the bloody accident of the Holy Spirit? Those who died in that year were the top talents of each holy sect. After that, the great holy son of each holy sect betrayed the sect and left, which had a far-reaching impact. That's true. Although we can't see the situation inside the Battle of Shangxian Mountain, the spirit of the Tianjiao secret realm will announce the information of all the participants. The 4th round will be in 3 days. In the room, Hua Shichen looked at Su Li expectantly. "Lady Qingxue, the future of the Holy Land depends on you this time." Su Li nodded, then tilted her head slightly, squinted her eyes and chuckled. "Elder Hua, since the 4th round has begun, there are some things that I need to tell you." Pavilion Headwind was right. There was a change. Hua Shichen's expression changed slightly, but he didn't panic. He told the other people of Jiguang's sect, "You all leave first." The people of Jiguang's sect looked at each other and left one after another. "Elder Hua, Lady Qingxue may have some private affairs. She can't be an enemy." Zhang Run secretly transmitted the sound and was about to leave. Su Li suddenly said, "Zhang Run and Xianan, you two stay?" "Me?" Zhang Run was slightly stunned and was pulled back to his seat by Xiana. "Since my sister asked you to stay, sit down." Zhang Run scratched his head and responded obediently. Hua Shichen glanced at Yen Zai and others next to Su Li, and he had some guesses in his heart. He said in a deep voice, "Lady Qingxue, You can say it now. Su Li nodded and beckoned Li Hai to come forward. Let me introduce him again. He used to be the deputy lord of Yushu sect in Jiuzhou region, Li Hai. Li Hai reached out and cupped his fists. Hua Shichen immediately stood up and came back. He thought that Elder Qing Shui was at most a spy from other sects, but he didn't expect that the first sentence completely broke his conjecture. Yushu sect. After the bloody accident of Holy Spirit, who didn't know the name of this sect? Although this sect was only a top-grade sect, its particularity could be compared with that of holy sections. Jiuzhou region was the most special big region in Qingshui Circle, except for Immortal region. The spies of holy sects were everywhere, and they were extremely sensitive. Once, Jiang Run frowned, but noticed that Su Li's words implied something. Sister, my hunch is right. Xianan laughed, and his eyes flickered. He guessed, I always thought that your origin must be amazing. Now it seems that the deputy lord of Yushu sect listens to you? I heard that the lord of Yushu sect is an old man. Sister, you are so young and beautiful. You must be the holy girl, right? The holy girl of Yushu sect, Fong Ling? Hua Shichen gradually clenched his fists in his sleeves. If what Xianan said was true, then this woman was the enemy. Elder Hua, don't be nervous. Li Hai glanced at Su Li respectfully and said on behalf of him, I do listen to the master, but the master is not the holy girl of Yushu sect. Master? Hua Shichen felt uncomfortable again. That was the supreme title of the Holy Land. Only the master of Linli Building deserved this title. Not the holy girl? Xianan was stunned and asked incredulously, Is it the great elder of Yushu? The great elder of Yushu. That was the top enemy. Zhang Run's eyes became sharp, but Li Hai smiled silently. No, the great elder of Yushu has become the master's prisoner. It was an understatement, but it was earth-shattering. What? Hua Shichen's eyes widened, as if he couldn't believe what he had just heard. Prisoner? I didn't hear it wrong? Zhang Run's fists gradually loosened. He stared at Su Li's calm and indifferent face, and his eyes gradually brightened. Elder Hua, you didn't hear it wrong. Yin Zai laughed and said proudly, as early as a year ago, the master led the Ni sect to flatten Zihan sect, destroy Yushu sect, and occupy 25 sections. All the holy sects were controlled in just 3 days. The person sitting in front of you is the great elder of Ni sect, the lord of Jiuzhou region, Su Jiuzhou. The words, like a storm, swept the hearts of the 3 people in an instant. Clang! Hua Shichen's body trembled violently, and he fell from his position unsteadily. He stared at Su Li, whose face was the same as before, but he could no longer treat her as an ordinary elder. The lord of a region? What kind of identity was this? Her status was comparable to that of a junior emperor. In their Jiguang sect, the only one who could be called a junior emperor was the old first elder who was practicing in isolation. Within 3 days, all the spies of the holy sects were controlled, and no news was allowed to spread. What kind of means was this? Almost 80% of the spies of the holy sects in Qingshui Circle were found and controlled instantly. How much manpower and time would it take? In his opinion, this was simply an impossible task. And the image of the master who coordinated all this, Su Jiuzhou, in his mind instantly became illusory. Why did such a mysterious and powerful female practitioner sneak into the Holy Land and become a small elder? Chapter 577. You can search Poisonous Wife in Baidu. You can search for the latest chapter. Hiss. Sister. Xianan gasped, and it became a little difficult for him to speak. I guess that you have a powerful background, but I didn't expect. Zhang Run, who was sitting on the edge, was a little confused. It seemed that such a legendary female practitioner didn't need to covet their small sect. Compared with the entire Jiuzhou region, the Linli building in the Yinyang region was nothing. Elder Hua, don't panic. You only need to know that from now on, the Linli building will have an extremely powerful ally. Su Li squinted her eyes and said in a gentle tone. She continued to say amazing words, so powerful that You can show up above board and be the enemy of the holy sects in Qingshui Circle without fear. Huashichin took a few deep breaths, got up and sat back in his seat, but his movements became a little restrained. With a smile on his wrinkled face, he asked cautiously, Lord Juzhou, I still don't quite understand. Why do you want to get involved in the mess of the Linli building? Although controlling the Jiuzhou region will make the holy sects unhappy, if you are powerful enough, those selfish holy sects will not attack you together. But if you carry the banner of the Linli building, will be regarded as a thorn in the side of almost all holy sects, right? Huashichin wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. Suli said the second half of the sentence for him with a smile. In fact, for me, whether I carry the banner of the Linli building or not, I will be attacked by others. In this case, why not make those hypocrites more unhappy? Then why? Huashichin was full of doubts at the moment, but he had to follow Su Li's words because he didn't have the courage. Su Li smiled slightly and glanced at Ling Qinglan and Yin Zai. Ling Qinglan glanced at Yin Zai, and he waved his hand. You do it. After all, you are more famous than me. After you betrayed the sect, your fame is not less than mine. Ling Qinglan shook her head and said. She released the restriction of all spirits tactics and showed her original face. She nodded to Huashichin and the other two who were like stone statues. Nice to meet you again. You all know my predecessor. Now, I only have one name, Ling Qinglan. The first holy boy of the Yin tribe. Didn't your soul split? Huashichin was so excited that he was drooling. Then he thought of something. His eyes suddenly widened, and he pointed at Su Li with a trembling voice. You. It was you who destroyed the Yin tribe. At this time, Yenzai also revealed his true appearance and chuckled. Greetings again, Yenzai. Dongfang Wuxue, who had not spoken much, also smiled at this moment and echoed in a warm voice. Dongfang family, Dongfang Wuxue. 3 days later, the entrance to the Immortal Ascension Mountain opened. The entrance at the foot of the mountain was surrounded by cultivators who had come to bid farewell to their holy son and holy daughter. Among them, there were 2 people, one old and one young, with dull expressions. They were quite eye-catching. Senior brother, what happened to those 2? Who knows? Maybe he was shocked silly by the geniuses. Some people were whispering and pointing at him. The old man and the young man were still in a daze. At the foot of the Immortal Ascension Mountain, in the vast canyon, the prodigies who had come to participate in the 4th round gathered in groups of 2s and 3s, waiting for the teleportation array to open. The entire Immortal Ascension Mountain is probably a large magic treasure. It seems to be only the size of a small mountain, but in fact it is extremely vast inside. It is not much smaller than a small world. As Yenzai spoke, he patted Jiang Run, who was still in a daze, and clicked his tongue. The teleportation formation will randomly send us to any corner of the Immortal Ascension Mountain. You brat, pull yourself together. Don't die before we meet up. Jiang Run came to his senses with a start and immediately bowed deeply. Yes, senior. Yin Zai scratched his head and said speechlessly, Lad, do you have to be so exaggerated? Jiang Run realized that his words and deeds were inappropriate. His dark face was a little red, and he said awkwardly, You are a legendary figure like the master. If I am not careful. Yin Zai waved his hand and thought that he was not a legend. If this lad knew that the legendary holy girl Su was next to him, he would be in heaven. If you have anything to say, wait until the end of the Tianjiao battle, Su Li suddenly said. Su Li suddenly said, Do you remember the hint I gave you? Of course. Jiang Run was shocked. Choose the right path. Then I will be safe all the way. If the ancient saying is true, safety is only relative. If you encounter a ruthless person, you must adapt to the situation. Su Li said and looked at Ling Qinglan and Jiang Run. As for you two, I don't need to say more. Ling Qinglan nodded to show that she understood, but she was confused in her heart. Why had she never heard of the saying, if you are strong enough, choose the left path when you encounter it is a great lucky chance. Buzz. The light above the canyon swept over the black brilliance and was immediately shrouded by the black light curtain. Then, in the nothingness, a dazzling blue vortex rotated and slowly emerged from the nothingness. The entrance is open. The voice of the spirit of the secret realm reverberated in her ears again. Almost instantly, a suction came out from the vortex and sucked everyone away. After a few breaths, the light dimmed. In the overgrown mountain road, a light suddenly flashed, and a slim figure in black appeared. Is this the immortal Ascension Mountain? Suli glanced around and found that it was silent. She couldn't see anyone. There was only a winding mountain road with no end in sight. An ice sect, Su Jiuzhou. The voice of the spirit of the secret realm sounded. At this moment, it no longer called the ranking, but directly called Su Li's name engraved on the slate. This is the last pass of the secret realm. You must reach the top of the mountain within 3 days. Otherwise, if you are submerged by the endless water, you will be eliminated. If you can reach the top of the mountain first, you can choose one of the treasures of the owner of the secret realm. The voice gradually faded away. The treasures of the owner of the secret realm? The Tianjiao secret realm was indeed owned. Su Li pondered for a moment, and suddenly felt a little cold under her feet. A trace of transparent water seeped out of the dry soil. The endless water is the best material to refine magic weapons. It turns into a mountain and a sea here. Su Li narrowed her eyes and flashed up the mountain road without hesitation. After a while, 3 identical forks appeared in front of her. Su Li didn't stop and entered the leftmost fork. At the same time, countless talents at the starting points of the immortal Ascension Mountain also made their choices. My lord said to go to the right. Jiang Run didn't hesitate to step into the rightmost fork. The scene in front of him instantly changed, and Jiang Run found himself in an ancestral hall. However, the writing on the ancestral hall was blurry, and he couldn't tell which ancient faction this ancestral hall belonged to. As Jiang Run approached, golden handwriting suddenly appeared in the nothingness. Silently recite the first rule of the clan, and the way out will be revealed. The first rule of the clan? Where did the clan rule come from? Jiang Run was dumbfounded. As Lady Jiuzhou said, there was no danger in this ancestral hall, but it seemed that there was no possibility of passing. Otherwise, I'd better quit and choose the left fork. Jiang Run turned around, but was shocked to see a vast expanse of whiteness, which reflected his confused face. Lady Jiuzhou, you really hurt me. After Su Li passed through an ordinary fork overgrown with weeds, the world suddenly changed. The scene in front of her changed into a wide giant grotto. In the grotto, in addition to her, there was also a young man in a black robe with a vertical thunder pattern between his eyebrows. Are you Su Jiuzhou? The young man stared at her closely, and his pupils shrank slightly. A green light flashed in his eyes. Su Li raised her thin eyebrows, and heard Su Bai and Song Lei's cave rarely speak. Sister, he has a trace of Numa of the same origin as me. It's so intimate. Divine thunder of wood. Su Li's lips curled up. She stepped closer and said, Are you Ban Xian, the first holy son of the holy sect of Wind Thunder? It's my honor to be remembered by fellow practitioner Su. Ban Xian nodded, and then said self-mockingly, It's funny that all the holy sons of the holy sect of Wind Thunder have amazing combat power, but I'm not even in the top 10 of the Tianjiao list. I'm really sorry for my ancestors. Prosperity and decline are normal. Don't worry about it. You don't have to belittle yourself, first holy son. Su Li said politely. She wondered why Ban Xian was so calm when they met in this Shangxian mountain. Squeak! A painful sound came from the dark. Su Li tilted her head and stared at it. Then she saw a giant rusty iron gate in the dim light, which was 100 meters high, and the source of the sound came from the iron gate, which was slowly rising. Su Li faced the iron gate and waited quietly for a moment. Then she suddenly asked, Fellow practitioner Ban, which side of the fork is chosen? The elders in the sect said that the choice of the fork has always been unruly. You just need to follow your heart. A trace of fishy smell came from the gate. Ban Xian smelled it, and his expression gradually became serious. But after I checked the sect's classics about the Tianjiao battle for tens of thousands of years, I found a rule. Although the talents who walked the leftmost died the most, they were also the most outstanding. Su Li glanced at Ban Xian's side face with a smile in her eyes, Is it really good to tell me such important information? Ban Xian turned his head and laughed heartily. I naturally have my own plan. Fellow practitioner Su, if you don't mind, how about we join hands? Oh? Su Li tilted her head and smiled meaningfully. Does Holy Sun Ban think I need allies? Fellow practitioner Su's strength is comparable to that of the Holy Sun of the Peak Holy Sect. Maybe you really don't need it. Ban Xian said solemnly, but I am definitely the most powerful auxiliary practitioner since the Qingshui calendar. Fellow practitioner Su, don't you want to have a try? Auxiliary practitioner. I don't know if you are the strongest. Su Li chuckled, but you may be the most shameless holy son of wind and thunder in history. Ban Xian blushed and let out a long sigh. In order to be ranked on the Tianjiao list, he was ready to risk everything. However, if you can lead the holy sect of wind and thunder to stand on the side of my Anai sect, it's not impossible for me to help you. Su Li threw out a sentence with a smile. What? When Ban Xian was stunned, the giant iron gate finally rose completely, and a gust of evil wind swept over. Chapter 578. You can search Poisonous Wife in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. After the evil wind, there was no more movement. The dead silence gradually filled the whole cave. Ban Xian suddenly felt his hair stand on end, and his breathing was not smooth. He faintly perceived that he was stared at by a pair of terrifying eyes. Su Li stared calmly at the front, and her eyes suddenly froze. It's coming. Ban Xian only felt dizzy, and the sky was dark in an instant. He had no time to think. Without saying a word, he waved his hands horizontally and shouted, Up! The emerald light curtain spread from his palm to the size of a basin, and the evil wind blew in his face. Bang! A white claw hit the emerald light curtain with such great force that cracks appeared in the light curtain in an instant. Ban Xian's face changed. He jumped back and floated in the air. Finally, he saw the enemy's appearance clearly. Roar! This was a ferocious-looking demon beast. Its 2 legs supported its whole body, and it stood upright like a human. It was hundreds of feet high. The demon beast regained its freedom, raised its head and roared, revealing its terrifying giant mouth full of sharp teeth, which shook the cave debris down. A powerful demon. I'm afraid its strength is no less than that of nature's test. Fellow practitioner Su, we? Ban Xian didn't finish his words until he found that Su Li didn't retreat like him, but still stood in the same place. Roar! The demon beast's eyes were red, and it raised its claw to press down on Su Li's head like a mountain. Oh no! The thunder pattern between Ban Xian's eyebrows twisted. In the next breath, a large piece of emerald green vines came out of the void in front of Su Li and wrapped Su Li in the blink of an eye. This skill has not been mastered yet, and there will be backfire if I hit it hard. I'm afraid my thunder pattern, Ban Xian thought quickly, but he gritted his teeth and did not choose to withdraw the vines. Just at the moment when the giant claw came, a calm voice suddenly came from the vines. Break! With a bang, the demon body collapsed instantly, turning into a sky full of blood rain and minced meat, filling the space. Ban Xian was shocked on the spot. He even forgot to maintain the skill of vines and gradually withdrew it. Su Li flashed and stood in front of Ban Xian. She waved her sleeves to block the blood rain and smiled lightly. Thank you. Ban Xian returned to his senses and smiled bitterly. Su, fellow Taoist, you're too courteous. I didn't help at all. He had thought that Su Li's words were just the arrogance of a talent. It turned out that she was so powerful that she didn't need anyone's help. With fellow Taoist Su's strength, I apologize for disturbing you. I'll take my leave now, Ban Xian said and was about to leave. Unexpectedly, Su Li stood in front of him in a flash. She fixed her eyes on him and asked, I can see that your vines are not mature, and it is likely to damage your cultivation. Why don't you take it back? Fellow Taoist Su, you have a good eye. Ban Gon was surprised, and then he shook his head and said with a smile, I was the one who suggested joining forces. If we shrink back at the last minute, wouldn't it be shameful? I think any cultivator with faith in their heart would do the same. Suli took a deep look at Ban Qian's serious expression. She turned her eyes and saw the ground was shrinking rapidly. After a moment of silence, she suddenly laughed. In Glory Sect, there aren't many who are as pure as you. Pure? Ban Gong had a puzzled look on his face. My sect's teachings have always been like this. How is it simple? Holy sect of wind and thunder? Suli said thoughtfully. It seems that Gue Lazy is an accident. Gue Lazy? Ban Qian's pupil shrank suddenly. As a holy son, he certainly knew that this person was a spy sent by the sect to lurk in Leiyuan sect in Jiuzhou region. How could Su Jiuzhou know? Clatter. The blood flowed and condensed, and a huge demon reappeared. It raised its head and roared. With endless hatred in its eyes, it lowered its head and rushed to Su Li. Su Li's eyes turned cold, and she said softly, "Destroy." Boom. In an instant, the demon beast's body exploded apart once more, and it transformed into numerous pieces of flesh once more. However, unlike the last time, every single piece of flesh was covered in a layer of gray-colored sword light that flickered and ground the flesh into nothingness. Ban Qian looked at this scene in horror. Is that the sword intent? The sword intent was absolutely invincible in the same realm. He had only seen the same power from Xianyu, and Lingli compared with the control and power shown by Su Jiuzhou. The power of the two sword intent was like that of a baby learning to speak. The gap was incalculable. Why didn't such an evildoer be known until now? It seemed to appear out of thin air. What kind of shocking secret was hidden in it? Do you want to climb to the top of the mountain? Su Li looked back, and there was a light in her eyes that made Ban Qian inexplicably frightened. Some things are troublesome to explain. I don't need to say more in 3 days, and you will understand. It is not too late to tell me your choice at that time. Ban Qian took a deep breath, suppressed all kinds of thoughts in his mind, and nodded. Buzz. But at this moment, the last piece of minced meat of the demon disappeared, and the cave phantom also broke apart. A slightly wider mountain road than before was revealed. There was a buzz in the nothingness, and a fist-sized, crimson gem-like essence slowly rose from the nothingness. Su Li's eyes flashed, and she reached out her hand, and the red essence fell into her palm. This is the essence of that demon's flesh and blood. Ban Qian looked at it and said in surprise, "This thing is the supreme magic treasure of physical practice. If you refine it, you can greatly enhance your pneuma and blood, and even break through a small realm without any side effects. The combat power of that demon is comparable to the early stage of nature's test, and at least equivalent to the peak of the late stage of Huashan realm of the human clan." Just the early stage of nature's test? Su Li threw it to Ban Qian casually, and Ban Qian took it in astonishment. "This? Fellow practitioner Su, you killed that demon, and I didn't do anything at all. This thing is useless to me." Su Li smiled. "Just take it. Let me see what you can do for me as an aide of the wood circle." Useless? Ban Qian couldn't believe his ears. Looking at the hot red essence in his hand, he couldn't help but raise his head and said again, "Fellow practitioner Su, even if you are not a physical practice, if you can refine it, you can also greatly enhance your physical body. There are many benefits. Let's go and climb the mountain earlier." Su Li's figure flashed, and she went away in a flash. Ban Qian was stunned, shook his head with a wry smile, and put away the essence of flesh and blood to follow her. Their figures flashed, and after a while, there were 3 more roads in front of them. Su Li's figure paused and stopped. "What's wrong, fellow practitioner Su? Shall we go on the left?" Ban Qian slowed down and stopped beside Su Li. "Of course, the left." Su Li's eyes flashed. "I was just thinking that since I can meet you at the first intersection, will there be 2 entrances? Will the Shangxian mountain merge 2 entrances every time we choose from the foot of the mountain?" Ban Qian was slightly shocked. "There is no relevant record in my sect." "Then let's go and have a look." Su Li stepped into the mountain road on the left, and Ban Qian immediately followed her with vigilance. The two skimmed for a while, and a fog gradually appeared in the mountain. At first, the fog was very shallow, and Ban Qian could see clearly. But the deeper they went, the thicker the fog was. In the end, All they could see was white. He tried to explore with his divine awareness, but he couldn't penetrate it. Fellow practitioner Su? Ban Xian saw Su Li's faint back in the white fog, and he took a few steps forward. He stretched out his hand and patted, and the back actually scattered into a cloud of white fog. Fake. Ban Xian's heart immediately tightened. He made a gesture with both hands, and green lightning appeared in his eyes. His gaze shot into the white fog like a green line. His sight immediately became much clearer, but he still couldn't see Su Li's figure. Fellow practitioner Su? Ban Xian looked slightly dignified and continued to move forward. He knew that it was not Su Jiuzhou who should be worried, but himself. Going on the left meant a great risk. He was already tired of dealing with the previous test, and this test was likely to be more difficult. Besides, he had lost the help of Su Jiuzhou. After walking for a long distance, Ban Xian suddenly found that the sight in front of him became clear. There was a human figure not far away, motionless as if it was hung on a torture rack. A dead person? Ban Xian approached slowly and vigilantly, but the closer he got, the more he felt something was wrong. Why did this figure look a bit like fellow practitioner Su? Don't come over. It's dangerous. Suddenly, the figure struggled for a while, and a hoarse voice sounded in his ears. Ban Xian's pupils suddenly contracted. It was really fellow practitioner Su. What happened? Ban Xian propped up the wood thunder shield and approached quickly. Seeing Su Li's dull expression at a close distance, his heart tightened. He made a gesture and was about to reach out to pull the rope on Su Li's body. At this moment, he didn't find that the mouth of Su Li on the torture rack suddenly cracked, revealing 2 rows of fine cold teeth. Just at the moment when Ban Xian was about to touch the rope, a slender white hand suddenly grabbed his wrist. Idiot. You can even be fooled by this. Boom. Su Li's eyes were cold. She punched the torture rack away, and the surrounding fog immediately surged violently and skyrocketed. Disperse. Su Li snorted coldly, and the fog immediately screamed and receded. A lot of white fog drilled out of Ban Xian's ear holes. Before it had time to escape, it was slapped out by Su Li. Ban Xian came to his senses and saw that it was not the torture rack that was blown away, but a pale woman in red. Those were just her bewitching skills. I'm ashamed. I thought the pupil skill could see through these ghost skills, but I didn't expect it to be ineffective. Ban Xian was ashamed. Su Li glanced at him. The object of the pupil skill is only human beings, but it is useless for ghosts. Besides, the pupil skill you practice is not at the peak. The price of trusting too much is your life. Ban Xian smiled bitterly and suddenly realized something. He said in astonishment, Ghosts? Su Li nodded and pointed to the woman who was still grimacing in the distance. Do you know ghosts? The ghosts that have been extinct in the legend? Ban Xian's eyes widened, and he couldn't help turning his head to look again. He said, It is said that ghosts are immortal and extremely difficult to deal with. I don't know why they died later. How should we deal with them? Difficult to deal with? Su Li tilted her head and waved her sleeves. The Tsang Lei's cave appeared, Hong and Bai. I'm coming, sister. The little girl in a red cotton-padded jacket came out of the cave. The 2 lines of blood and tears had been wiped clean. She was porcelain white and clean, like a 5- or 6-year-old doll. Before Ban Xian had time to ask, he saw the little girl stretch out a pair of fleshy hands. He didn't see any movement, but the female ghost screamed and disappeared in blue smoke. Well, sister, I'm going back to rest. The little girl skipped back to the old abode and disappeared, leaving behind a stunned Ban Xian. So easy. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.